Good evening. I call to order the regular meeting of the Conroe Independent School District Board of Trustees for Tuesday, October 21st, 2025. The time is 6 o'clock and a quorum of the board is present. And this meeting has been duly posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We will now begin with the invocation by Trustee Dawson and the pledges by Trustee Horton.
Lord Jesus, we just come before you tonight, just grateful, thankful for somewhat cooler weather. Pray for even more cooler weather would be great. Lord, we just pray for our students as they are learning and growing, as for our teachers, Lord, as we're adopting and implementing new curriculum. I just pray that you would give them grace, give them strength as we get through this first semester, and we just pray that you would be with us tonight, give us wisdom and direction. In your name, amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, trustees. At this time, I just want to say thank you and welcome to Dr. Vinson. This is your first regular board meeting here this evening, and we're thankful to have you. At this time, we will hear from individuals who have signed up to address the board. Please indicate the agenda item or topic on which you wish to speak. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. Please remember that the board cannot deliberate or take action on matters not listed on tonight's agenda, but may direct the superintendent to look into the matter or place it on a future agenda. We ask that the speakers address the board respectfully and keep comments focused on the district's business. Ms. Spurlock, call our first speaker, please.
Catherine Carey. Catherine Carey. Beatrice Gasca.
Hi, good evening, feminine board, I love that, and new superintendent. I'm here to propose a solution to improve what Conroe ISD is offering already, and it's an international parents onboarding program to educate international parents about the United States education system to have better prepared students. Why is this important? I'm originally from Mexico, but I live in Canada, Belgium, Spain, Miami, and the Woodlands since 3 years ago. And even though I have a PhD and 3 honorary doctorates, and I was one of the most powerful women by Forbes Mexico, I had no idea of this system when my son, 5 years old now, entered Colson Tough. And I had a very tough time at Tough understanding all of this. So I read about it, I learned, I asked, but I think it will be very useful for all of us, and thinking mainly to the students, to have their parents more involved with what is happening on their education. You know, I mean, I can mention a lot of benefits, but I'm sure you already have them on your mind. I would just like to highlight that 35% of our population comes from other countries. And if we do not get them involved, then we are missing opportunities for having better citizens. Education reflects each country's unique values, from the structure of school systems to teaching philosophies, resources, and even cultural priorities. That's the reason why I think this could be a manual, a workshop, or a document that they can download from our website. In our website now we have these resources that are super useful, but none of them talk about what I'm mentioning here. So I'm offering you my services for free to make our district even more beautiful. Thank you.
Joshua Swartz. Joshua Swartz, Ellen Munter,
Hi, my name is Ellen, and I'm the parent of a second grader and a preschooler who will be in kinder and CISD soon. I'm here to voice my concerns with the Bluebonnet curriculum as you guys are talking about rolling out the next stages of it. While I understand the intention of this curriculum of wanting to prioritize values and American history in school, I have major concerns with the overall quality of Bluebonnet. The curriculum couples these goals with a truly, what I've found, a weak language arts program. As a concerned parent, I've done my research and I've spoken with literacy experts familiar with Bluebonnet, and many of these experts do not believe that this is a good curriculum for many reasons. Texas trains teachers on research-backed practices, the Texas Reading Academy. Bluebonnet, as implemented right now, abandons many of those best practices. Language arts must prioritize reading, phonics, research, and writing in all forms. And some of the topics, the history stories, are really high interest, which we really appreciate, which is encouraging for a lot of these children. But interest alone does not make a high quality reading and writing program. You can teach history and values, and you can also deliver a rigorous evidence-based literacy program. And this curriculum right now is not both. Your decision to implement this curriculum before properly vetting it has turned me into a mama bear as well. So here I am to fight for a better education for my children than what was selected. I trusted you to protect my child's education. Instead, you adopted a reading approach that literacy experts call inadequate, and you put our district at risk and our children's education at risk. So I'm asking you tonight, please pause further rollouts of Bluebonnet, and please have Bluebonnet independently reviewed and vetted and modified by curriculum experts and classroom teachers. Thank you.
Mark Brooks,
I'd like to second what she just said. My wife is a teacher who has a lot more training in teaching reading than I do, and she basically said a lot of exactly what she said. But today, I'm here to object to some of the proposed revisions to local policy EMB, which pertains to teaching about controversial issues. I believe it's later on in the agenda. Most of the proposed revisions are cosmetic or needed to comply with recent legislation, primarily SB 12, but some of the proposed revisions go above and beyond any legislative requirements that I'm aware of. Here are two examples. Example number 1, quote, except as required by state or federal law, the district, including subject persons, shall not require, teach, make part of a course or training, provide guidance or activities, discuss, require an understanding, or otherwise instruct any subject persons or students that. There are a bunch of topics, but the new one that's being added is make unpatriotic or anti-American sentiments. The terms unpatriotic and anti-American are undefined, so it's an ambiguous catch-all provision. Who gets to decide whether a sentiment is unpatriotic or anti-American? How do we expect teachers to foster students' critical thinking skills if they aren't even allowed to discuss viewpoints that might be considered unpatriotic or anti-American? Example number 2. There's a new section called prohibited terms. Of all the words and phrases in the English language, 2 of them apparently warrant express prohibition in our district. These Voldemort terms are Latinx and minor attracted person, which is apparently a synonym for pedophile, which I'd never heard until I read that. I'm against adding a prohibited terms section at all, but I have a modest proposal. If the board feels compelled to add a prohibited terms section, please include the ubiquitous phrase 6-7. In conclusion, the board has the authority to make revisions to local policy, EMB, that go above and beyond state and federal law, but please give these revisions the scrutiny and consideration they deserve. Thank you.
Destiny Milton,
Good evening. I'm here tonight to talk about the Bluebonnet ELA curriculum and how what's happened with it should be a major warning as you review Bluebonnet math curriculum. Bluebonnet is simply not the quality our students and teachers deserve. If the proper curriculum process had been followed and the committee's feedback had not been dismissed by this board as unnecessary and redundant, many of these issues would have been caught prior to adoption. One of the biggest problems is the biblical content is bound straight into the same reader as the regular lessons. Parents have every right to opt their children out of this. But because the opted out material is bound in the same reader, our teachers are now required to spend their planning time cutting out the pages and pasting the new lessons into the reader. This board has said numerous times that they value and respect our teachers. If we truly respect teachers, you wouldn't have them doing arts and crafts during their valuable prep time to fix a broken curriculum you adopted. When I asked the curriculum department how many students opted out this year versus years in the past, I was told the information isn't available, as schools store that data independently. I urge this board to compile that and to compare it to the previous years, because it is directly tied to the additional workload that you have created for our educators. Secondly, the curriculum has factual issues. In the 5th grade reader, there's a story about Da Vinci and the Last Supper that's presented as fact, despite its source, Giorgio Vasari, being well known in academic circles as publishing false stories and gossip. That is not the kind of accuracy our students deserve. Finally, independent reading time. This is time which helps kids fall in love with books and the act of reading. It has all but disappeared. Many teachers have vocalized to parents and curriculum coaches that Bluebonnet does not allow adequate time for this. As you look at the math curriculum, please learn from this. Do not rush to adopt a curriculum to gain favor with politicians that you hold campaign fundraisers for at your home and attend galas with. Take the time to review it properly. Curriculum adoption lasts 10 years, and one poor decision can affect a decade of learners. It's time to drop Blue Bottom ELA for something better. Our kids' education should not be hindered by your negligent decisions.
Avery Clayton.
Good evening. I am the mother to a preschooler who will soon begin the critical foundational years of her education, so I wanted to take a moment to voice concerns with the academic quality of Bluebonnet curriculum. Our state's literacy experts are raising the alarm, and several school districts have already rejected it, citing concerns not with the religious content, but its lack of academic rigor, and most especially that it does not incorporate phonics well or follow the science of reading. It turns independent reading time and engaging lessons into hours of lectures and worksheets, even for our youngest learners. Research has shown us time and time again that this is not how young children learn. It reduces comprehension and retention, and most devastatingly has been shown to crush a young child's curiosity and love of learning, which is something that will continue to plague them through the rest of their academic career. I don't understand why this board voted to implement this unproven curriculum before receiving teacher feedback. Our children deserve a high-quality, engaging curriculum, and Bluebonnet is clearly not it, based solely on what we already know about how children learn. This curriculum, in its current form, is a step backwards for Conroe ISD. As a Christian and a mother, I am perfectly capable of teaching my children lessons from the Bible. I send them to school in order to learn how to read the Bible. Jesus would not want us to rob children of a quality education, and I am here to ask each of you, from one mother to another, to please properly vet Bluebonnet before any further implementation. Thank you.
Brianna McDonald. Brianna McDonald. Michelle Knuckles.
Good evening, board, and welcome, Dr. Vincent. I am too tall. My name is Michelle Knuckles, and I am here on behalf of the new nonprofit Liberty Library Project with a brief update on book donations in Conroe ISD. Thanks to Diamond Systems, Inc. and trustee Tiffany Nelson, we have placed 3 sets of Tuttle Twin storybooks teaching free market ideas and personal responsibility into CISD elementary schools. Thank you for your generosity. Thanks to Balmer Energy USA and an anonymous donor, we also have enough copies of Squanto and the Miracle of the First Thanksgiving by Eric Metaxas for every elementary school campus. Those will be delivered later this week. Additionally, through the support of donors, we have placed 2 sets of Brave books with more on the way, along with 3 Action Bibles, 4 Early Reader Bibles, 3 Turning Point USA High School recommended reading titles, and other value-focused titles. And a special thank you to Board President Misty Odenweller for donating 2 more sets of Brave books. Thank you so much, which will be delivered very soon. We have even more books coming, and I look forward to sharing our next update with you. Any parents or grandparents wishing to donate books to their child's school can find us at libertylibrary.org. Thank you for your time, and if I may approach, I have a thank you card signed by children in the community for Trustee Nelson.
I think you have to give it over there. Yeah.
Susan Scruggs.
Good evening, Board, and we're so excited to have you, Dr. Vinson. Thank you for coming to Conroe ISD, and I look forward to chatting with you sometime in the future. Tonight I wanted to talk about RMFs in the classroom and the harm to children in the classroom. Wireless technologies have come to the forefront as harmful to children and adults, although the harm to children is much greater than to adults. Depending on the organ, the damage to the children can be twice as much or up to 30 times as much as compared to adults. Currently, this is being researched, and there is an alarm sounding for schools to monitor their facilities, making it compliant with the ALARA, which are standards for low levels for tolerable radiation. Some of the issues with children and radiation are that a child's brain is smaller and filled with more fluid and not fully formed, which causes radiation to penetrate their brains much easier. In addition, children's skulls are thinner, which allow radiation to pass through their cranium, causing damage to their neurons and pathways that have been developing since birth. I have a document which I will send to each of you with suggestions on how to eliminate and reduce EMF exposure in your facilities. Reducing wireless connectivity, amount of screen time, replacing wireless meters, sensors, charging devices with wired analog devices, along with making sure cell towers, antennas, boosters are not located on, in, or near any school property are the keys to reducing EMFs. I'm suggesting that this important medical issue be prioritized to the top of your agenda, and that you may begin forming a committee to look into the ways to reduce these harmful EMFs right away. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all very much for taking the time to share your concerns or viewpoints with us this evening. Moving on. The next item is the consent agenda. Items include A through H as listed on the agenda. Trustees have had the opportunity to review these items in advance. Are there any items to be removed for separate consideration? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the items as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ladies. All those in favor of approving these items, show by the uplift of hands. The motion carries 7-0. Moving on to the next item on our agenda is administration. Did I skip one? Sorry. Oh, I thought she was talking to me, sorry. All right, Dr. Vinson.
Is that working? Can you hear me? Very good. Already my first presentation here. Discussing the adopting the mascot and the colors for the Conroe Virtual School. I want to thank Andrew for providing this information to us. as far as working hard on colors, information, ideas, and thank you for your input. I mean, y'all had some rigorous, ideas and concepts, even with regard to colors and lettering and all that kind of stuff. That input really is valuable. And one of the things that I know that a few of you had mentioned is that this is a notion of a kid that's going to go out on their own, and they're taking a chance on virtual school. It's new, and it's kind of a maverick idea, and they wanted to reflect that in its processes and procedures. And so, do you want to cover this and go through this for us, Andrew? Andrew's done a great job in this whole process, and I know that he really valued my input on all the. No, he didn't.
Good evening, President Owenweller, members of the board, and Dr. Vinson. Back in August, the board officially named the Conroe Virtual School, which has been serving students across the district for the past couple of years. Since that time, students, families, and staff submitted nominations of school's mascot and color selections. After reviewing all these submissions, we are excited to bring forward a final recommendation this evening. The most selected mascot was the owl, representing wisdom, curiosity, and a lifelong love of learning. The school colors, which were most widely selected, were navy, Carolina blue, and white, reflecting clarity, strength, and confidence. At this time, we are proud to recommend for your approval of the Conroe Virtual School Owls.
Do we have any discussion?
I would just like to say something. I love the owl. He's very powerful. She's very powerful. I don't know if it's a girl or a boy, but it's very powerful. I really appreciate that. But I also just want to, there was a secondary selection that got very close to winning. It was the Trailblazer, and I just want to shout out to the team that put that together out at the Conroe Virtual School. Certainly, these students are trailblazers in the Conroe Virtual School, and I'm really excited that we're adopting this tonight and we're moving forward with it, planting roots, and fantastic looking owl. So that's all I want to say.
Anyone else? I'm excited to have some identity forming around this school because they deserve it. They've really worked hard, and I think this will be a positive next step for them. Thank you all, for your whole team, for their work in this. Okay, do I have a motion? Oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying thank you.
Do we have a motion to accept as presented the mascot and colors for the Conroe Virtual School?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, ladies. All those in favor of approving these colors and these mascots, show by the uplift of hands. And the motion carries. Okay. B, Dr. Vinson.
We're ready to talk about the most exciting topic in the world, without controversy ever, the school calendar. And so the one thing that I really want to give, Dr. Upshaw is going to give that presentation. And throughout this presentation, we hope that we reflected a lot of the things that you guys had requested. Number one, that we provide an annual calendar for your review. And the second is that we have plenty of time for public input, even overtime input if we should need it. I've never actually coined that as far as the process goes, but the overtime input, should we need for someone to come back and make those decisions. In your packet actually is a printed copy of the timeline, because sometimes it's hard to read. So Dr. Upshaw.
This is perfect height. So President Odenweller, members of the board, and Dr. Vinson, tonight I have the pleasure of kicking off the school calendar process for the 2026 and 2027. Like Dr. Vinson mentioned, this is probably the most involved activity that we do with our community. It is the most seeked survey and the most responded survey that we do send out as a collective school district. I think the last time we went through this process, we had an average of 38,000 comments with communities and stakeholders. So as a reminder, in the district calendar process, we have a body that we call the district level planning and decision-making committee, and that is composed of community members, parents, and teachers and district personnel that sit on that committee, and their average term on that is 4 years. And currently, right now, chairing that committee is Dennis Meisler, which is our principal at the Woodlands High School. They help us bring the feedback to you, and at the end of the day, they give a recommendation to you. So they work on a couple of calendars, they go back and look at the surveys, they give feedback from other calendars that we've studied, and kind of help us guide as we move through this process. So the goal through this timeline is potentially to come to you with a recommendation for your approval on January 20th, 2026. So that doesn't mean that it's the last time you see me or us as we have this conversation, because there is a timeline. And today we are on October the 21st, and we're talking about the process and asking you for your feedback, because it's a back and forth. The district level, we met with them last week, they gave us feedback, we come to you, you give us feedback, so on and so forth, until we come to a valid or a couple of valid options for you to be able to choose. If, for example, on January 20th, we do not have a calendar, that we have calendar A and B, and we would like to have a B.2 version, we can come back in February and have planned for that as tentative dates. So part of the process when we're developing the district is that we have something that's called DOI. If we don't have 300 acronyms in education, we're going to have 301. And that is the District of Innovation. And the District of Innovation is very involved, but there are components of this plan that allow us to be able to start school prior to August 25th. If we did not have the District of Innovation, we would be starting school on the last Monday of August. So as you know, one thing that's very popular with our calendar is ending before Memorial Day. So if we were to start at this date line, that usually is when you see schools ending late in June. Then there's a whole bunch of minutes that we have to have rules, lots of rules. Dr. Merle is my compadre, like we say, my partner in this. He makes sure that we keep all the minutes aligned with days, and we have to have a calendar that has 75,600 instructional days. So that is an average of 420 minutes for 180 days. Well, we don't have a 180-day calendar. We have a 172-day calendar. So that means that we have an extended day, 435 minutes for elementary, intermediate, and junior high, and for our high schools, 440. We also make sure we build in weather days, because Mr. McCord will tell you we always have to plan for an emergency. And so within our calendar, we have 2 bank days of weather days. That's not a purposeful weather day planned in the calendar, but that is in the bank. And just holidays, so that you know, holidays are not scheduled on days identified by TA for student assessments, because we want to make sure that we have the most instructional time to be able to deliver those. So here's some things we've learned through the process. And my mentor was Dr. Chris Hines, that did this for many years, and this holds to be true in the last 4 years that we've done this process. Our calendar greatly affects all family schedules, and it affects the county as a whole. If Conroe ISD is not in session, neither are most daycares, so on and so forth. So as you know, since we're the largest school employer in the school district, so goes our calendar, goes everything else. As you know, when you try to drive on I-45 the first day of school, right? So we've had positive feedback starting midday, right? Wednesday, instead of starting Monday, Wednesday is a popular day. If you're a high school student, that gives you time to figure out all the schedules. Right? It gives teachers an opportunity to get schedules fixed and be able to start anew on Monday. It also gives us time to fix all the miles we drive with transportation routes if that's needed. Another valuable lesson that we've learned, if we plan a week that's shorter than 3 days, attendance suffers. You look at the calendar and you say, we only have to come to 2 days. Oh, we don't have to come to 2 days. So we've just noticed that in the data. So we don't traditionally plan school weeks, a week that has less than 3 days. The week of Thanksgiving is popular. Once you've done, we're never going to go back. So we don't want to be that group that does that. So that would be my biggest advice to us as we move forward. People like 3-day weekends in their winter break, right? You know, when we have all the holiday seasons. December 28th is the common possession change in any divorce decree. So we try to look at that for our families. Spring breaks can be moved. We historically go with the majority of Texas universities. We do not have any of those dates yet, but about the November time, they start releasing them, and that starts to help us inform that. And the debate about balanced semesters is ever present. We are very aware that there's more breaks in the fall than there is in the spring, or so on and so forth, depends on when the calendar falls, and the semesters are not balanced. But there were a couple of years in the last history of our calendars that we've experienced where we had the break for the holiday, and then we came back and did midterms. That was also one of the lessons that we thought we will not do that again. So those are things that we've learned. Our current calendar is 172 days, and teachers are 187 days. Staff, we do have staff development days or early release at the end of each semester. That was requested through the flexibility of the last calendar, specifically by the board, especially the last day of school, and especially right before the holidays, right? They asked if we could be able to do that. It also allows teachers to get grades in, so on and so forth. We historically take these days off. We also have a staff development waiver. There comes a time when we ask you to approve a lot of waivers. One of those waivers is 2,100 minutes. Remember I said there's a lot of minutes. So that big number at the beginning, we're allowed to have 5 days of staff development with this waiver. That means to enhance professional practices, stop and look at data, and help teachers plan and really maximize instruction for our students. And we've learned that adding 5 minutes to the school day results in 2 additional days. So we did that the last time we did our calendar, right? And we've pretty much reached maximum because of, we do have a very large transportation system, a 3-tiered bus system, and adding another 5 days to our school day, that's something that Mr. McCord could provide you additional details of what those routes look like if we ever get to that point, if that's an option you want us to look at. So for the past 17 years, this was our start date. If you'll notice, there's a little asterisk in the year 2017 and 2018. That's the year we decided to do the DOI. And you'll notice that we have started about the 2nd or 3rd Tuesday. It really depends when that calendar lands. And you notice we also started on Wednesday. So that's kind of been a tradition for us. So here's some calendar highlights and trends. So the district level planning committee looked at 26 calendars. Our favorite is to say, well, if we only had this calendar, or we only had this calendar. And what we have learned is that the reality is that the variation of staff developments and long weeks and trends in calendars have become a real recruitment practice in school districts. So the last couple of calendars that we planned, we had to be a little more innovative, right? And say we need to offer some of the things that other school districts have and do some changes. But these are some things that are highlights that we notice in those 26 calendars. The majorities of the districts, they start prior to that 4th Monday in August. The average instructional days on these 26 calendars is 171.2. The number of teacher days average is 186.3. This was interesting. This was not the case when we came with the last calendars. All districts have applied for the District of Innovation, all of them. Fall and winter breaks, they have week breaks. Some of our combined with exchange days, so they'll say, well, we had the whole week off. Well, they might have, but they did exchange days, which is something that we've started doing here in the past. There's a variety of staff development workday options. Some people have instructional planning days. Some people have parent-teacher conference days actually in the calendar. They plan for them, and exchange days. 17 of the 26 schools that we looked at, they do have staff development requirements after Memorial Day holiday. So usually that's the day the teachers do all their training, then they don't have to come back on that day. That's what we've seen in this pattern. And like I mentioned before, it's a highly recruited tool that's used out there in districts. So after reviewing all those calendars, what the district level planning committee did is they did what basically is a gallery walk. For those of you that are educators, you know what I'm talking about. They go around the room and then they give us feedback on asking you, when we look at things and we start developing, this is what they want us to consider. Start no earlier than our current calendar. They would like to continue to start on Wednesday. Week of Thanksgiving was on all 5 groups because they were broken up into groups. They said, please keep that week. They liked the fall break. They liked the current 4 days that we had just come off of that 4-day weekend. So they really liked that. They asked, could we add 1 or 2 days? And they asked, consider a whole week if it's possible. They'd prefer for spring break to match these schools. Students and before Memorial Day. This was popular. They wanted us to add bracket for grading periods because that was something that was on some of the calendars. They need professional learning days for instructional planning. So when we created exchange days, we didn't have that professional learning time at every quarter, which is something we had in the previous calendar. So they've asked if we could look at that. Be intentional about incorporating monthly breaks. They don't want random days off. They want to have a purpose and a reason why, and here was the popular one. They loved the exchange days. Literally loved, big heart on the feedback. They also asked us for calendar survey questions. In this week's board brief, there will be the survey questions that they did vote on for you to give us feedback on if you would like to see. We traditionally would like to give this survey starting about November 3rd to November the 11th, right before the next district level planning committee meeting in November, so they can start to formulate calendars based on that feedback. And these are the things they've asked us to consider. They want us to look at the survey by different grade levels because that does matter. They want us to look like who gave the survey feedback. Was it parents, communities, teachers? My favorite is 236 students replied the last time we did this. So they get on there. I want that calendar. Questions about the holiday preference, right? So because we can't have it all. I think that's one of the things I've learned in this process is that people want all the breaks, and it's like, we have to teach the students. We have to come to school, right? So there's only so many we can have because we have to have those minutes. Okay. These are our current calendar highlights. We're living it right now, so we're very familiar with it. And this is what's interesting about this next school year's calendar that we're planning. Election Day is on November the 3rd. So just a reminder, part of what we've done is that Monday, what our trend has showed us in attendance is that Monday right before that election day, because we have traditionally taken it off in the last, I would say 5 or 6 years, because a lot of our schools are polling sites, right? So for the safety of our students, we've chosen to make that a staff development day. But what do you think happens to that Monday right before that Tuesday? Our absence suffered, our attendance rate suffered about 2 or 3 points. And so we just eventually made that staff development day for teachers, and then this past year we made it an exchange day, or the last 2 years made it exchange day. The winter break holidays, if you'll just look at where that lands, right, that's a little bit different. In some of our versions in the last calendars we did, the Christmas holiday was early in that week. So right now if we were to release on the 18th, it's a whole week prior to that for travels, if that's what our community or parents would like to do. The spring holiday, known as Good Friday, I want you to notice where it's at. So that's very close to where we're going to take spring break. So normally we take the Monday right after, but we'll be coming off a spring break. And from that holiday all the way to the end of May, there's nothing in April. So just want you to consider that. So the district level planning committee did an activity, and then I stopped them 5 minutes in and I said, I want you to look at this. And they went, oh, right? Because, they started just going and they're like, wait, start counting because you're going to need to see what we're going to do in April. And then Memorial Day, if you'll notice, it's actually the last Monday of the month. So that does have some flexibility in that last week in May. Traditionally, Memorial Day was that like May the 24th. If you see on that calendar, that's not the case this year. I don't know. We'll see what can be created. So this is what the district level planning committee did. They had huge poster-sized calendars, and then they had the rules of engagement. And I said, time to play. So we have 5 proposed calendars that they have worked through. They were also able to take this home if they have any versions. Our own Dr. Kendra Wiggins asked for a couple calendars to be able to create some of her own. She's like, I want to try this. And we've done this before in the community. I think the last time we did this, we had 38 samples. You're more than welcome to do one yourself if you if you want to offer one to throw it into the pile of considerations. And what we'll do is take those considerations, look at the survey that we receive, and in the November district level planning committee, start to look at these are the top 2 or 3. There's been years we've had 10 versions. I think that becomes too convoluted, so we'll probably be 3 to 4 is normally the average of what we'll bring to you to give us additional feedback. So that is our update, and that's our process, and I'm here to welcome any feedback, questions, advice. Yes, please.
I have a quick question. Thank you so much for doing this. I can't even imagine the logistics that go behind putting something together like this. Just for clarity, this is a 1-year calendar, not a 2-year calendar, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
1 year.
Just wanted to make sure that we were abundantly clear on that for the folks that are listening in. Just looking forward to seeing what you all present to us, and really appreciate all the hard work that you're putting. I feel like you and Mr. McCord are probably dreaming about placement in your head and all of these things. So thank you again.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Trustee Nelson.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. Like Trustee Nelson said, it is quite a process with a lot of feedback. Something I have heard over the years is regarding our banked days, that we have those 2 days in the event that there is bad weather. Do those bank days, do they count toward, I know we average about the same as the other districts. There are 186 instructional days for teachers, we're 187. Are we counting those bank days, or what happens if we don't use those bank days? I've just heard about them.
So the bank days are for students. They're not for teachers. So in the event of a weather day, right, we have availability to have 2 days. That is what we've built in the calendar. So we were to move forward with that and continue with 172 days. In the current minutes we'd have 2 banked days. Now we can intentionally go in and plan inclement weather day if we'd like to, just in case, because for some reason things happen. We've been very blessed this year, and our last hurricane was during the summer and not throughout the season, and we didn't have to do that. But if we run out of bank days, we would need to make up the minutes. So teachers will not have to come extra, because if the students are coming 172 days and the teachers have to by contract come 187, hopefully we're not taking that many.
So are the
days off.
students coming 174 days for the bank days, or is it
They're-
172 total?
It's 172 total in our current calendar, the current calendar. And in this calendar right now, we have 2 bank days. So if there were more than 2 days that we had to take off for weather, we would have to figure out a way to add minutes to the calendar. Now, we've done that in a creative ways, right? Remember, it's all about minutes. So it could be adding 5 minutes to the calendar, because remember, 5 minutes are 2 instructional days. So let's say we have to make up some time. We could do that and say we took 3 days off. We'll need to be able to make that up that way. We could also do it on an early release day if that happens to fall. But I hope I'm making myself clear
No,
currently.
you are. So the bank days, they kind of replace where we used to have the little, inclement weather. Have a lot of other districts moved toward that, or is that something we could look into?
Absolutely. If I might, one of the things that we've done in the past, remember the old days where you had a weather day that was taken, and then there was provisions in that you had to take them in May. Of course, this Houston weather, I don't know what the prevailing, there's probably not a lot of snow here, but that sometimes, and in that process, and so after May, we would designate those weather days, and if you had to make them up, but that way, what you're saying is you're not leaving days on the table and opportunities for that. And so if you wanted to include those and make those as a provision, we could look at that in terms of the process and say weather day, but the thing is, if you have to use them, can't keep them.
Let's hope with Dr. Vincent mentioning that we won't have a snow day or snow days this January. We never know. I remember the year we had the snowpocalypse. I don't know, everything has a name, right? And it was quite a few days off, but we just never know, and I think it's unpredictable. But if that's something that the board would like us to consider as we move forward, to consider these days or that, we can.
I would love to get some feedback on that. I know I've heard from a lot of teachers and parents that these are 2 days that we've done that now count for nothing. We've done extra.
Thank you. That's good feedback, Trustee Horton. Any other feedback?
Madam President, I want to make sure that you do know that just one of the things that in my conversations with y'all, that we use DOI carefully. Y'all have mentioned that once and a time again in our small groups and in our individual meetings. You've iterated that. We want to make sure that the public knows and everything, that we are making sure that that's carefully done. That we are looking at all the things about what the parameters and standards of teacher workday are. Because, sometimes you've said teacher workdays are an important thing during our groups when we were talking about. And then, ultimately what's best for families and for teachers, but really think about those. That's our audience in mind, and we're taking good care of. And then seeking public input from the committee. Dr. Upshaw has done a good job. And she was refereeing some pretty, those people were passionate about calendars. I was kind of a little too much. But they care about them. But, so it took a little longer than I thought to get input because people were passionate about it. But definitely opinions. But
don't envy you.
I really do. And the thing is, those committees, one of the things y'all asked too is that the committees, what does it consist of? It's parents, it's community members, it's retired folks, it's there's some the pastor in there. You had all kinds of different people, walks of life, all giving input about it. And really, again, there was very few people that had I had the least input of anybody. I'm still coming to school, so. Yeah. But thank you for that input, and I wanted the public to know. y'all are asking those questions, and it will guide our processes.
Thank you.
Dr. Upshaw, just to be sure I understood you correctly, did you, and I see it now on the calendar, on Good Friday, you're suggesting that this would be the first year that we're considering possibly not taking Good Friday as a holiday?
No, ma'am. We traditionally take that day. What I was just trying to note is that if we were to take spring break the week of the 8th through the 12th or the 15th through the 19th, normally when we have Good Friday off, we take that Easter Monday, whether we take it as a staff development, so on and so forth. But it's very close to spring break, and then that would put no break in April. That's a long
time for
8 weeks, 10
educators
weeks.
and administrators to not have a break.
So that was what I was trying to share.
You were suggesting not taking the Monday.
It depends where it falls, right? Because remember, it's all a number of days and minutes. So if we would want to give a day in April, we might not give it off on March the 29th that you see there. Yes, Trustee Dungan.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Anyone else? Any other comments or discussion? Thank you, Dr. Upshaw. It's
Absolutely.
always a challenging process.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to human resources, Dr. Vincent.
It's with pride that I present Dr. Landry, Dr. Ted Landry to you. And, you know, when I got here, one of the first people that greeted me, made me feel warm and welcome, not only from you guys, but was from Dr. Landry. And, you know, when you think about legacy, you know, it really denotes different things in your mind, but people that want to come to someone and get advice that represent the values of our community and that people really adore and think so much of. And through everything that he's provided us, including our senior staff, you as in terms of a board, during pretty tenuous time, you know, my dad's the finest man I've ever known. I've never heard him speak ill or poorly of another person. I've always thought when he used his words, he used them carefully and kindly. And Dr. Landry and I he reminds me a lot of my father in terms of those same qualities. And plus, he lets me talk more. And it's really important. And in this whole process of what we do, that it's I always think God has a plan for what we did. And I think that Dr. Landry was here for us. And it's with great pride and esteem that I recognize Dr. Landry as our deputy superintendent. It's going to help us guide us through some really specific things. You know, we're going to go through a curriculum audit. And, you know, to the people and spoken things, you know, he's actually done this before. And as I say, really cool thing that I've always said is, as far as a good leader, they have the locker room and people listen to him. And, you know, if they believe him and they trust him, that goes a long way when we're having to go make hard decisions. And so I just think God's brought him to us, and it's going to be great that we're going to get to have him help us in this process of being deputy superintendent.
So at this time, do we need to vote on the change of his contract, or are we good?
Okay, here's the thing. Yeah, actually, what the deal is, he was also interim superintendent. He has many other titles, but so he has two contracts, and so we stop one and we begin another. And so to make sure it's clean, that we're gonna stop. You know, we're gonna end the interim contract, and we're going to move on to adopt his new contract.
So yes, take a vote.
That's correct.
Okay, just making sure that's what you're asking of us.
Two votes.
So no, we don't need to do the two. One will
okay.
supersede the other.
Yes.
I just wanted to be sure as well.
Thank you. That's a very good clarity.
All right. So do I have a motion to amend our deputy superintendent contract for Dr. Landry as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Third.
I think 7. Okay, Horton and Dungan. And all those in favor show by the, did we have any discussion? I apologize. I didn't ask if there was any discussion. Okay. All those in favor show by the uplift of hands. 4, 5, 6, 7. And the motion carries as Dr. Landry's contract is now amended for deputy superintendent. Thank you very much, sir.
Really quickly, thank you all very much. for me to be able to remain in Conroe ISD in the place I love, place I call my home, means a great deal. And to be able to continue to serve our great district is just a dream come true. So thank you very much. I want to thank Dr. Vincent for being so gracious with everything. He's going to be fantastic for us. I look forward to working with him and you all in this capacity. I want to thank the cabinet for, the summer. We did some really challenging things, and they were right there with me every step of the way. I want to thank them. And then, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't thank my family, especially my wife, Casey, who is my rock and my foundation, who I would slay dragons for. She is everything, and she can't be here tonight, but she makes it all happen. So thank you all very much. I look forward to working with you.
Okay, don't go anywhere. Trustee Dungan is going to recognize Dr. Landry on behalf of the board for us.
So, it is my great honor, I'm not going to cry, so I'm not going to look at you, to speak on behalf of the board this evening, to offer our sincerest thanks and overwhelming gratitude to Dr. Ted Landry for his outstanding service as interim superintendent of Conroe ISD. Interim is defined as an intervening period of time, temporary or provisional. That was exactly the moment our board found itself in this past May as we navigated uncharted waters in search of the next leader for Conroe ISD. To our great benefit, there was no one more fitting to lead during that interim period than one of our very own, a proven, steadfast leader who had already made a meaningful impact at the helm of the Woodlands High School. That leader was Dr. Ted Landry. You stepped up without hesitation, took the wheel, and quickly steered us into calm waters. By late July, we were celebrating summer graduation and preparing for the start of a new school year without incident, shockingly. Dr. Landry, thank you for being a calm and steady presence when it was needed most. Thank you for being decisive, for acting swiftly, and for speaking with thoughtful intention. Your leadership during this critical time has left a lasting mark on our district. We're forever grateful for your service to the students, staff, and community of Conroe ISD. As a token of our appreciation, we present you with this custom plaque, only a small symbol, to remind you of your time as CISD interim superintendent. This plaque was specially designed and crafted by Conroe ISD High School graphic and design and engineering students. A heartfelt thank you to Ms. Tally Jo Stout for coordinating this effort and to all who contributed. Now, we proudly congratulate you as you step into your new role as Deputy Superintendent. We look forward to witnessing your continued leadership and the success it will bring to our district. May God continue to bless you and your family.
Yeah, I forgot my phone. I want to show the picture.
No, it's not a selfie, but can we get a picture
Yeah, Andrew.
with Dr. Landry and the group?
Yeah, I feel naked without the phone. No, Andrew's got it. Those really are cool. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
All right, moving on to item number 6, teaching and learning. Board, Dr. Vincent, if you would please lead us into this next presentation.
Well, before I get started on math, which is everyone's favorite subject, I want to talk a little bit about, it's actually Dyslexia Appreciation Month, or Dyslexia Awareness Month. And dyslexia, it's crazy. It's been a long day. So the thing is that one of the things we do is a resolution traditionally in this process, but we're actually going to have, first going to kick off a monthly video that we're going to have about teaching our stakeholders about important topics in Conroe ISD. And we're going to feature interviews with some of our kids, and it's really heartfelt. They've been through the whole program, and now they're in high school, and they're class presidents, they're leaders, and showing how it's a windy road sometimes with dyslexia. But on the other side, you've learned so much and gained so much. And so with that, look forward to seeing this video and teaching people about the most important thing, which is giving kids hope and helping them succeed. And it's going to be a lot of fun for us to be able to do in those features. And I know that we're going to have a lot more, but this is going to be a great kickoff, and I know it's important to all of you, and we're going to make sure that we give it the just deserve it needs. And so with that, if that's okay, we're going to kick that off. And then Dr. Upshaw is going to give us a presentation on our math instructional materials plan.
Again, President Odenwiller, members of the board, and Dr. Vinson, I come to you to kick off the instructional material selection process for mathematics grade K through 12 and provide you an update of our process that we'd like to move forward with in selecting these materials. So one of the things that we wanted to educate our community on is our current board, EFA board policy, which is our instructional material resources. It mentions that the ultimate authority for determining or approving any curriculum lies with the board, just similar to the calendar that we just had a conversation about. It's always been in place that at the end of the day, the board does recommend the resource that we use and make that decision. Also, in addition to that, we can engage administrators, teachers, other district personnel, parent and community members as appropriate when we're making this recommendation for selection. So what has changed is I'm about to update all of us in the room, and for those constituents that are listening to at home, that the process for selection instructional materials has changed from what was traditionally in the past. This process is very ongoing. Traditionally, under what was called proclamations, the State Board of Education would adopt TEKS. They'd take about 2 years to do that process, and then they'd implement a curriculum, and then you had to have that curriculum for 8, sometimes 10, sometimes 12 years. That is not the new process, and I'll dive a little bit deeper into what that looks like. So prior to board approval or the vote, the superintendent will certify that our process that we're doing complies with all our district policy, and he's going to develop those procedures. So part of me coming to you tonight is these new procedures that we've adopted in this new process. So before we get to that, we need to talk about, so where does the funding happen, and where did all these changes and how we adopt instructional materials come from? So it came from House Bill 1605 in the 88th Texas Legislature, and it gave us 2 new entitlements. Part of those entitlements are what we call the entitlement for highly quality instructional materials. So if we adopt something that's vetted and fits in that category, we do receive $40 per student additionally to what we currently receive. And then if we decide to adopt an OER, we receive another $20 per student. And I think that's interesting when we look at that, because that's annually that we are able to carry over that cost. For the $40, the OER, you can only use it one time for that year. So why is this significant? It's significant because previously we used to receive what's called IMTA funds. And IMTA funds gave us the average of the cost of one algebra book for students. That was it. And so when you think about it, a freshman takes more than algebra. They need a biology book, they need a world geography book, they need an English book. So this additional funding allows us to enhance the instructional materials that we bring to our students. So it behooves us to take into consideration an advantage of using these funds so that we can get more materials for our students. So when this process came about, the first selection of these materials were adopted in November of 2024. At that time, our priority of the school district was to adopt reading curriculum. So at that time, they had adopted math materials, but the list was small, right? Now, when they're going again in November of 2025, they're going to have an expanded list of math materials so we can have a lot of choices to choose from. And then the Open Education Resource Instructional Materials is its own state adopted textbook. So what does that look like for math? It is called Bluebonnet Math, Kindergarten through Algebra 1. All right, so let's talk about funding. Remember we had that conversation about these new entitlements. So that you can see here is the additional funding that's coming into our school district is listed there, right? So from this current year for HQIM, it's $2.6 million. Our carryover from last year is 5.1, right? And we've had to adjust some funds from previous years, and they also give us an additional amount for growth. So you'll see that there. And currently the funds that we've used so far have been $280,000. And that has been with additional Bluebonnet materials that we had to because of overage, right? So the State Board of Education also gives us OER funds. And as you can see there, it's an additional $1.3 million with another $17,000. So I want you to look at that. That's $9.2 million for us. So if we were to use this money to buy textbooks, then what can we use the other IMTA for? Software, advanced placement books, all these things that we weren't able to purchase in the past. So what is our current balance? $3.4 million in IMTA. So let's go back. We have $9.2 million in those two extra buckets. I like to call them buckets of funding that came with 1605. And then our current IMTA balance, which is $13.4 million. Before we get too excited, the IMTA balance comes every 2 years. So before we think we're going to have $3.4 million every year, it's every 2 years. So we have to make it last. And textbooks are not cheap, right? An adoption is probably about $5-6 million. So we wanted to put that in mind. And then we also have IMTA recurring costs, which are $3.4 million. Some of that is software, some of that is personnel that we're allowed, and all of those are allowable. So our current math adoption. You know, we get told a lot that we don't have a math adoption. We have a math adoption, but I think it's fair for me to share with you the following information, right? So we adopted math in both proclamations 2014 and 2025. K through 8 was adopted with an 8-year purchase made in 2014 and 15, and the high school math was adopted also for another 8 years in the 2015-2016 school year. Now, initially, the state planned to release new TEKS, and they also planned to have a new proclamation with math in 2024. But when House Bill 1605 changed the process, they paused it and they said, let's make it a part of this. So they did not release new TEKS, and they proposed to make this part of the new IMRA process. So the state pivoted its decision. So why do we often hear that we don't have a math adoption? Because I think what's very different about the process and proclamation to the process that I'm going to describe to you with IMRA and HQIM materials is that in order for textbooks at this time through a proclamation to make this list, they only had to meet 50% of the TEKS. That is our standards. So of course, our teachers would have to take all the resources and vet it according to Texas standards. At that time when these proclamations happened, the majority of the United States was using Common Core. And so if you think about if a company creates a textbook, in order for it to just repivot to just do something solely for Texas is something that is it's costly. So we would receive documents that showed us what was that bridge, but it only needed to meet 50%. So our teachers would come together, look at the resources, and try to find the one that was best suitable for students and pick a resource that met the most aligned to the TEKS. But what happens when it's not aligned to the TEKS, what do teachers do? They have to go create their own material. So that is why our legislation enacted the State Board of Education and said, we need to have a better process to vet materials that come with what I like to call all the things prepared for the teachers. So these are just the list of the books that are out there. So the IMRA process. I know a lot of acronyms, right? Let's make this acronym number 302 and, you know, acronym HKM 303. So what happens now is this IMRA process is the State Board of Education now has this system when they review a whole bunch of quality materials. So basically they've come up with a rubric. And publishers know what the characteristics are to the rubric. The rubric is not easy. And they say, number one, you need to be 100% aligned to the TEKS. Number two, You need to be aligned with ELPS. Those are the second language acquisition skills that students need, and the state of Texas continues to grow in this population. If it happens to be pre-K students, it needs to be aligned to the pre-K standards. It also needs to be grade level appropriate. It also needs to have assessments. It has to be quality, and it has to have suitability. So is it appropriate for our students? Is it appropriate for our standards in the state of Texas? Because if it's not, teachers are then having a supplement. In addition to that, there are committees that come across Texas that are part of this process. There's two parts of the process when they come together, and one of them is for the quality of the material, and the other one is for the suitability. I think it's very important to mention that it's 400 educator and constituents that come to each one of those processes. It's 800 educators and constituents that come to review it with this IMRA rubric. So it's teachers in the state of Texas that come and do this process.
Can I just ask real quick?
Yes.
So does that apply to Bluebonnet reading?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so a lot of people have reviewed Bluebonnet.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes. So with that, then comes a rubric, so on and so forth, and they make the list, right? They make the list that is called HQIM. So what's important to hear, what makes it HQIM, and I think this is really important for our teachers to know, that when we're going to go through this process and we're going to look at this curriculum, we're going to actually look at what's called a curriculum, not a resource or a textbook. So a full curriculum has to have everything covered in the TEKS, English language proficiency standards covered. It has to have evidence-based practices. They call that the RBs, yet another acronym. Supports for all learners, because there's all sorts of learners. Children with disabilities, emergent bilingual students, students that are gifted and talented, all those tiered embedded supports within the lesson. So most of the time you'll see it on one of the columns on the side. Again, it meets grade level suitability. It's free from factual errors. So what does grade level suitability mean? That means that it looks across the TEKS through all the subjects. So if I was going to look at a lesson in math, then I'm going to make sure that I'm addressing the same concept that, and we're going to tie science to it, it needs to be the same concept that's appropriate for those students at the TEKS at that level. That's what they're looking at. Free from factual error. My favorite part of this is frequent progress monitoring, aligned assessments. It is so hard to write quality assessments, and our teachers are trying to constantly have to do that. It comes with it. It comes with more assessments than we can ever think of, right? So there's no longer a need to buy a test bank because it comes embedded in the process and it tells you when to use them in a timely manner. So it takes basically the teaching and learning department out of the business of having to create common formative assessments and quarterly assessments because it has them in there. It provides teachers and student-facing lesson materials, like we mentioned, with implemented supports. It also has physical and electronic materials for us to be able to use. And again, it has to be reviewed for the State Board of Education. What I think is also important about this that I'm not mentioning, but I need to mention, because that's all the things the teachers need to know, is that these resources are available to parents to view. Everything, with the exception of the tests, right? But everything so that parents can look, pace, so on and so forth, and have that available to their students. So for our constituents that are there, and for you to know that we have actually linked the quality and suitability rubric so that you can see from all the processes that have been out there in our school district, in the State Board of Education for what was done in the November process of 2024, and they will be voting and making a new list and adding in addition to in 2025, this November. So here were the previous IMRA cycle schedule. So this is one that we had reviewed with you previously when we were going through the reading adoption. So remember, the takeaway here for this is that it's no longer an 8 to 10 year adoption. Because one thing that we've noticed is that when we implement a material, if we train, we do a good job in training it the first couple of years, and then we average about 600, 700, 800 new teachers a year. And if you don't happen to be that new teacher that had that training, you're the teacher saying, where's our textbook, right? Or I don't have a textbook. This process keeps it very fresh, and we're constantly looking at, is it the best tool that's available? What is also very powerful about this process is that it's not only looking at the tier 1 resource that we are going to be adopting for math, it's also looking for resources for tier 2 and tier 3 when students struggle. So it's bringing those resources to light. Before, the district had to have that onus of finding an instructional resource to be able to be supplemental for a tier 1 to tier 2 and tier 3, and it wasn't necessarily always aligned to the TEKS. So that is something that they are also doing in this process. So the new cycle looks like this, and this actually was the work of Wendy Tisdale. Y'all know Wendy very well. She went through each one of those rubrics and each one of those subjects and put this here because it's important for us to understand that they're piloting materials before they're going to actually put them out there. So that's what's new to this rubric versus the one that you see before that. So you can see that they're going to be piloting Bluebonnet, Learning Integrated in K through 5. That is the Spanish dual language and one-way program. This is huge because right now our bilingual teachers are having to do both, and it's a lot, right? It's a lot of review. So they're looking at being able to do that. You can see that they're going to pilot pre-K and they're going to pilot ELA, so on and so forth. That's added to that. So this is what they'll be rolling out in the next couple of years. Right, so in November of last year, these were the vendors or publishers, I should say publishers, that made the list. Right, so you can see here, the list was not substantial enough. And why did we just not go with math last year? Because it wasn't complete. Right, it didn't have all the grade levels for math. And when we go math, we like to go the whole thing. Because what we realized, it's important that how you teach how to, I don't know, depends what tricks you were taught. When you were, how you were taught to borrow, or how you were taught to, round. Some of us were taught the roller coaster, all those strategies are important to be all the way through, because how you teach strategies in algebraic reasoning in kindergarten sets up that Algebra 1 student, believe it or not, but it does. And so we want to make sure that we look at the resource and align it that way. So you can see here that this was what was brought to that list in November of 2024. These are the possible K through 6 adoptions that they will have coming forward this year. So you'll notice Texas Bluebonnet Math in English, it was approved last year. They're approving the Spanish this November. Now please note they still have to approve it, right? Accelerated Learning Texas STEM Scopes, Curriculum Associates, which is called iReady Classroom, Savas, Envision, and Texas Math, and then Kingdom Texas Math. So these are the K through 6 possible adoptions. The middle school advanced math will not be something that is in this adoption. That's going to be coming in the EMRA cycle 2026. Currently, we are using the advanced math TEKS, and Conroe ISD has created their own curriculum to be able to implement that. Why did we do that? Because it's important to be ready for what this needs to look like when it does come and if we choose to adopt it. The 7 through 12 possible adoptions are here. This was done last November. These are the vendors. These are the pending vendors that will be approved in November. And then one thing that we want to, I know that we worked with Dr. Merle and he's pretty excited about this, is that now that we have available funding, we can actually be uniformed in the AP books that we have out there, right? So he's engaged with our high school principals and had that conversation, and we're like, let's do it, because we now are able to purchase these books. So if any of you have students in college, you know how expensive college textbooks are, but now that we have additional MTIP funding, we're able to go through this process, unify it across our district, and be able to give them the resource that they need. So I just want to remind you that as part of this process, if we do so choose an OER, we will have to come back sometime and be able to do a transition plan, which we did with Bluebonnet Reading. It is part of the process. And what we really came to you tonight is to tell you all these things about our textbook adoption process, to communicate to you and educate our community about how is this process different than it has been in the past, because it is different, and to really talk to you about our proposed timeline of implementation. So this is a timeline that is the whole year process. So to summarize, one thing that I think is important to point out is that in order to send our community out there, our math teachers out there, to be able to look at this adoption differently, we have to educate them. So part of what all this research-based evidence that we talked about is that we need to educate them on what's called the RBs. So with your feedback, our goal would be to bring our district guiding coalition. That's one thing that was really important and vital in this last process that we did. We had a group of 93 educators, 87 teachers, teachers in the field, getting trained, what like Chris McCord likes to say, boots in the ground, of being able to know and understand that material and give us guidance as we implemented. But in order for them to look at the material, they have to understand what is it that the IMRA evaluators looked at and why these materials are quality. Because the question isn't whether they've made the list, because we're not going to buy anything that doesn't make the list. The question is which one is better for us as teachers to implement, which one has more bells and whistles, which one is more accessible for us. So that's one thing we'd like to do in the process. We'd like to have feedback from our community, feedback from our teachers to give us the top 2 or 3 that they would recommend. These are the top 2 or 3 that we could have, and this is why, and then come to you with feedback and then an ultimate vote, and continue to use this guiding coalition to train. Because if we train teachers to have experience, just like we did this summer, we had a huge institute, about 150 educators, then it's more amped to be able to be a part of that process because they're part of how it fits in. So that really is what our timeline is here for you. It's our administrative procedure with our new board policy and with this new process. So at this time, I know it's a lot of information, but I welcome your feedback and your guidance on how we move forward.
Questions, trustees?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I'm excited about HB 1605 and the implementation of the high quality instructional materials. I would love for you to just touch a little bit more when you mentioned that this curriculum is 100% aligned with the TEKS and how perhaps things in the past haven't been 100% aligned and how much additional work and additional time that creates for classroom teachers when you have something that's 100% aligned with the TEKS.
Thank you. So let's think about math. So if we do what's called in our district, which is called a pacing guide or a year at a glance, that's what we call it in our curriculum maps, is that we look at all the TEKS that are required that teachers are to teach, and we give them guidance on how to teach it. When we would do that, we'd say these TEKS need this many days, so on and so forth. In our curriculum maps, you'd look at these TEKS and we would be able to go to our educational resource and say, there's something here for this lesson, right? But if it's not, what the teaching and learning department would do, or teachers in the field, would create, let's say, a repository per se, of all these additional activities to be able to implement, because it wasn't in the textbook, right? And let's say if it wasn't suitable for the teachers' different various needs with students with learning disabilities or English language learners, then they'd have to adapt that material additionally. So some of them would have to spend hours creating, right, on their own time, purchasing additional materials, when the reality is that material should have all of that. The difference is that this allows teachers not to spend their time creating the things, they spend the time internalizing the materials, choosing what they're going to use, and planning how they're going to use it with this child and this child and this child. So it's more that internalization is the fancy word for it, so that the first time instruction is quality at the get-go.
Yes, I love that.
So that is the difference between the processes.
That's big. So it opens up a lot of time for teachers to actually be in the classrooms and doing what's important, and that's teaching our children how to read or do math or whatever subjects we're teaching.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
You bet.
I noticed that you said we developed our own curriculum for advanced math. Is that correct? And it looked like the math curriculum wasn't going to be ready until after 2026. Is that right?
This current adoption that we're going to adopt will not include that advanced math curriculum.
Okay.
But we wanted to go ahead and move forward with those TEKS so that our teachers had experience. Because when you're going to go look at a material that will come out next year for us to look at, you need to have experience teaching it. So we've supplemented the gap, right? So we already had an advanced math curriculum, but we did was for these TEKS that have changed, right? Let's say some 7th grade TEKS were moved, so on and so forth, then we had to supplement and create those lessons for the teachers. So that was created by our teaching and learning department for our teachers.
Okay, and so we'll keep using that until they approve the HQIM for advanced math?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, thank you.
You bet.
I want to thank you for going through the IMRA process. And IMRA, I'm not sure, did I miss it? What does IMRA stand for again?
Hold on. I don't want to say it wrong.
Instructional Materials Review and
Yes.
Approval.
Yes, ma'am.
And did you talk about where the public and teachers can find all the information regarding the IMRA process? Because I think it's really important to understand the rubric and all that goes into that before it ever becomes an HQIM.
Yes, ma'am. So you can see on this slide right here, it's actually linked. So when this is posted to our constituents, they can click on that and they can have fun printing the 100-page reports on all the components. It is very thoroughly vetted. It'll tell you whether it met all the criteria that happens to be with that. Obviously, they're all 100% aligned to the TEKS, but they might be 93% in this category, 99% in that category, so on and so forth. But it tells you why, right?
And,
So
it tells you about the rubric itself. So
Yes, ma'am.
even, I know we're not talking about language arts, but the language arts definitely covers the phonics, and it's very difficult to pass through this rubric, correct? I mean, this is not an easy rubric for a curriculum to qualify for.
It is not. And actually, if you look on that link, they will tell you the vendors that applied and did not make it and why. And some of them are actually redoing and resubmitting, right?
And I don't know if Tally Jo Stout is here tonight, but she did, I believe, participate in the IMRA process this last time. Is she behind you by any chance?
No, she's
Not here. It would be good because there is a stipend involved, and there is asynchronous reviewing, and it would be good if we had more educators in our district that knew about this and participated in this process. I think it would be fantastic if our educators knew more about this process and participated in it.
Thank you, Trustee May. We do apply for various things. We get selected to be able to create state assessments. We get selected in the past to be on review committees. So that is something that we need to continue to encourage in this process. So thank you for that advice.
Go ahead. No.
I was wondering what the qualifications are for somebody to review the materials. Do they have to teach that grade level? Do you know?
There all sorts of community members that can come together. So they're educators, they pick community members, they stakeholders. So they pick a variety of folks, very similar to our district level decision-making process. Our committee, it's very interesting to hear all the aspects when you come together as a team when you're making decisions. So that looks like many constituents come together to do that, but the majority teachers.
Interestingly, parents are included. So I was listening to a recent State Board of Education meeting, and the parents that spoke had the most passion about this this most recent process. So that was exciting for me to see not only teachers, educators, shareholders, but parents, very passionate parents.
And thank you, Trustee Duncan, for saying that, because what's important about this process is that parents are also accessing at home. So they need to have voice on what that looks like, right? So I think that's important, because that's part of HB 1605. Not only the quality of the curriculum, but what does it look at home for as a parent for me that doesn't every day teach it? What does that look like for me to make it accessible? So that voice is very important too.
Yeah. The one thing that surprised me about the whole, I guess it wasn't so much as a surprise, but I found it quite interesting about the IMRA process is that they look at it from, I think, 4 different angles. They look at the quality of the material, of accuracy of the material. They have people looking at it for grammatical things. They are looking at it from a variety of different angles. Different groups are looking at it for different things. And where their focus isn't the whole book or the whole curriculum, they're narrowed into looking on one aspect. And then another group is zeroed in looking on another aspect. We all know that when you look at something in its entirety, even editing our own work, we miss things. And so I liked that, and the fact that there's thousands looking at it and reviewing it, not just a small committee.
Correct.
Before it ever gets to us to consider.
It looks like on your calendar, though, there will be a teacher committee for our district this year.
Well, we want to be able to have them look at the resources and say, out of these resources, which are the 2 or 3 that you could live with? Like, which are the ones that are the best ones? And then, and understanding that the goal is that this is your tier 1 resource, and it should have all the bells and whistles.
Yes.
which wasn't the process before in the past. So again, it's not a small committee. We've learned through this process that it needs to be larger. And it's not just one meeting. It needs to be a process throughout the year and part of our teacher training. I think that's what's been
How
very
many
beneficial.
teachers are on the committee?
Well, we haven't decided yet because we actually are proposing this timeline to you and giving feedback. But last year it was 97 folks and about 83 teachers. So mostly all teachers.
And you said they'll be recommending more than one curriculum?
Yes, ma'am. And I envision, and that was been feedback. I've had a few conversations with some of you about the process and how we could consider it as we move forward with surveys and pros and cons. Just like we did when we were rolling out our transition plan, we came back and forth with some feedback with you on how we move forward. So that's how we will be rolling out this process.
And it's nice too that there's more than 2 HQIMs to choose from with this material.
Yes, ma'am.
There's what, about 15?
Yes, ma'am. Depending what grade level.
I just want to point out really quick to Trustee Sumler's question about the IMRA reviewers' qualifications. If you go to the SBOE website under the IMRA section, at the bottom there's IMRA reviewers tab, and it tells you learn about reviewer qualifications, expectations, and compensation. So highly suggest everybody take a look at the State Board of Education website that lays out the instructional materials review and approval, and it will give you, and you can even compare and contrast the HQIMs. So what made this good and what made this good. And for me personally, as far as the committee is concerned, I look forward to seeing how we evolve that committee. I know you're talking about it a bit, and I heard Dr. Vincent talk about a curriculum review. So I think that committee, what it used to be, is now something new, right? And so I think you guys are working through that, and I guess we'll get updates on that as you move through the process.
That would be our goal. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Actually, I want to say that it can't be said enough, because you briefly covered it in your presentation, that 10 years ago this wasn't the process, and 10 years ago was exactly when legislation affected how we went about. That's when Common Core was introduced, and a lot changed 10 years ago. So for 10 years we've been going about this in all the crazy ways, trying to make our math curriculum in the state of Texas not include Common Core, which was great. That was great on a Texas state level. But the federal level legislation is what created the past 10 years of our inconsistencies in math and learning. So I think that just can't be stated enough. That's where we're at as a country. So I'm glad to see this process in place.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Upshaw.
Thank you, Dr. Upshaw. All right. Seeing we have finished that, we're on to item 7, business finance. At this time, the Board of Trustees of the Conroe Independent School District will convene a public hearing to discuss the district's 2024-2025 school financial integrity rating system of Texas, commonly known as the school's first rating. This hearing is being held in accordance with the requirements of the Texas Education Code, Chapter 39, to ensure that the district's financial management and reporting systems meet state standards for fiscal accountability and transparency. At this time, I will call up Ms. Karen Garza, our Chief Financial Officer, to present the district's 2024-2025 school first rating report.
Well, good evening, President Odenweiler, members of the board, Dr. Vincent, and community members. It is my pleasure this evening to present the results of the school first rating for Conroe ISD. The state's financial accountability rating system was developed in the early 2000s, and the primary purpose was to ensure that Texas public schools are held accountable for their financial management practices. The ratings that you'll see this evening are based upon student and staff data for the 23-24 school year, so there is somewhat of a lag. And the budgetary and actual information is based on fiscal year ended 8/31/2024. So how are ratings assessed? There are 4 possible ratings that a district can receive, the highest being an A, or superior achievement, earning between 90 and 100 points, and then the lowest, a substandard or F rating at 69 points or below. There are 21 separate indicators on the first report that are scored. The first 4 are what we consider critical indicators. If a district fails one of these indicators, they are automatically assigned an F or a substandard rating on the first report. There are also 7 ceiling indicators. If a district fails one of these ceiling indicators, the highest score that they can receive is a B, regardless of the amount of points they accumulate on the remaining indicators. We are proud to announce for the 23rd consecutive year that Conroe ISD has received an A or a superior achievement rating on the first report, scoring 98 out of 100 possible points. Of course, superior achievement is the state's highest rating, demonstrating the quality of Conroe ISD's financial management and reporting systems. So we'll go through our indicators briefly. Our first two indicators are what we would say critical indicators. These are dealing with the annual financial report that is reported to the Texas Education Agency annually. We did submit our report on time, which is indicator number 1, and then indicator number 2, we did receive an unmodified opinion on the annual financial report. So we did pass both of those two critical indicators. And then indicators 3 and 4 are dealing with payment and compliance in terms of payment. We did process our debt payments on time, and then all of our payments to the teacher retirement system, the Texas Workforce Commission, the Internal Revenue Service, and other governmental agencies were processed on time. Now moving into our solvency indicators. Indicator number 25 was our total net position positive. It was. We did receive a passing score on this indicator. Number 6 was the average change in fund balance over the last 3 years, less than 25%. We did receive a passing score on this indicator. Number 7 was the number of days cash on hand and current investments in the general fund sufficient to cover operating expenses. While we did lose 2 points on this indicator, this was a planned outcome as a result of a strategic decision that we made as a district with regard to our investment policy. We have intentionally carved out a portion of our unassigned fund balance to create a 36-month investment ladder to protect us from fluctuations in the market. So we did lose 2 points on this indicator, and we do believe that was a worthwhile trade-off for the long-term benefits of that decision. Number 8 was the measure of current assets to current liabilities sufficient to cover short-term debt. We did receive the maximum number of points on this indicator. Number 9 was our district fund revenue exceeded our expenditures for fiscal year 2024. We did, and we did receive the possible 10 points out of that. Number 10 was not being scored again this year. All districts did receive the maximum number of points on this indicator for the year. Number 11 was the ratio of long-term liabilities to total assets for the district sufficient to cover long-term solvency. If our district had an increase of students over the last 5 years of more than 7%, you automatically receive the 10 possible points on this. Our growth rate was 11.18%, so we received the maximum points on this indicator. And then our correlation between future debt payments and the district's assessed value was enough to allow us to receive the maximum number of points on that indicator as well. Number 13 deals with the administrative cost ratio. We have to have at least an administrative cost ratio of less than 8.55 to receive the maximum number of points on this indicator. The district's administrative cost ratio for this measured year was 4%, so we were well below that threshold and received the maximum number of points. Number 14, did the district have a 15% decline in students to staff ratio over the 3-year period? We received the maximum number of points on this indicator as well. Now moving into our financial competency indicators, was the district's ADA within the allotted range for the district's biannual pupil projections submitted to TEA? It was, and this is important because TEA uses these projections when they're developing their statewide budget, so it's important that they are as accurate as possible. We received a 5 out of 5 on that indicator. And then number 16 was the comparison of PEIMS data to the AFR, resulting in a less than 3% variance. We had 0 variances on our submission, so of course we did pass this indicator. Number 17 and 18 are dealing with internal controls related to our financial statement audit. We did receive a clean audit for fiscal year 2024, so we did pass 17 and receive the maximum number of points on 18 as well. And then 19, did the district post all of our required financial information on our website? We are very proud of our transparency page. All of the information that is required was posted. We received the maximum number of points on that indicator. And then number 20, did we discuss with the board 120 days prior to adopting the budget changes that are impacting our local, state, and federal funding? We did hold multiple board workshops throughout the fall and spring of that school year, so we did pass this indicator as well. And then lastly, the district is not on a repayment schedule for overpayment of FSP funding, so we did pass this indicator. So this first report presentation, along with all of the required disclosures, including the superintendent's contract and the annual financial management report, can be found on the district's transparency website for the public to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garza, for that report. This concludes the presentation portion of the public hearing. We will now open the floor for public comment related to the school first reading. Individuals wishing to address the board regarding the school first reading may do so at this time. As with other public participation periods, speakers are reminded that the board cannot deliberate or take action on matters raised during this hearing. Each person will have up to 3 minutes to address the board. We ask the comments remain respectful and focused on the topic of the district's financial integrity and performance as presented. Ms. Spurlock, do we have any registered speakers regarding this presentation at this time? If so, please call the first speaker. Okay. Hearing no further comments, the public comment portion of the hearing is now closed. This concludes the public hearing on the 2024-2025 School Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas for Conroe ISD. The board will now proceed with the remainder of the regular meeting agenda. Okay, I've had a request that we take a break.
Before we do that, can we just thank our financial team? Thank you so
absolutely.
much for your incredible work. I mean, every year, never fail. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the time is 7:35 and we will come back at 7:45. Is that okay? Does that give everyone enough time? Okay, 5 minutes, 7:40. The time is 7:53. We are back in session. We're moving on to agenda item 8, board policy action items. Dr. Vincent, would you please start us off with explaining how we get to this point?
Absolutely. Madam President, trustees, it's been an experience walking through these, and I love having the chance to talk about board policy, as nerdy as that might be. But I also want to talk about y'all's commitment to it, because it's an important thing for them to know just how much and how hard you work. And really, we're ahead of the curve in a lot of situations where some policy folks have not sent stuff out. We're ahead of the curve, and we've got a lot of things already taken care of that have already been approved, and what we're going to present tonight, and then what will be approved in the next couple of months. And we'll be done. It'll be great. So through that process, one of the things that you guys have talked to me about is that we have standards for any board policy, that they be clear, practical, and enforceable. If you don't have those three elements, you're going to be fighting uphill, and if people don't know what they are, they don't know how to follow it. And so all those elements are really important as far as having standards go. When you talk to me about that, every lens that we're going to present to you tonight includes that rubric of those elements. And I think it's important for the public to know that you guys have not, when you go through a policy, it's not just here's a group of stuff and then you approve it, that you actually have 5 steps that we take and meticulously cover to make sure you understand it, that we can communicate it, and that it's going to take good care of us. It's going to take good care of the district. So if there's a policy need, however that might happen, most of the time it's through legislation or with court cases, but sometimes it's just because we think that something needs to be changed that we look at that. And we start researching and drafting things. That goes with T, our Texas Education and Excellence group that reviews that for us, as well as administration and yourselves. And then we have a legal review that makes sure that everything that we do has the process and ideas that it's going to pass the law and it's enforceable in that way. Then we present that information to you like we will tonight, and you'll have a chance to review what we have. And then ultimately you'll come back for a second board meeting, which is, realize this has taken us a couple months for a second reading for ultimate review and approval. If the board, took it any more lightly, you could get things passed and just go through it. Y'all take this very seriously. And it's important that the public knows that, because I think it's an important thing, because whatever you have 2 really big jobs. One is policy and one's hiring, firing me. And so in the process of doing that, y'all take that job very seriously, and we want to deliver this information as clearly and as specifically as we can. So one of the things that's really important also, as a public education thing, as an educator, I'm always thinking I'm going to make sure I teach everybody everything as far as this goes, and y'all wanted the public to know, is there's 2 different kinds of policies. Sometimes there's policies that we have no control over. The state says, here's a law, cell phone bill, and here's where we're going to put it in place, right? And there's local policies that's adopted by trustees. You have to adopt a policy, this kind of like dress code, wherever it's going to be. You're going to adopt a policy, so you have it. It's your decision to put what in it needs to be in it. And a lot of times, they'll have a local policy that our legal counsel and our folks that develop our policy are going to say, you just pretty much need to stick to what we ask you to do so you stay within the framework of the law. Make sense? And so you will clarify, expand, or be more specific about the policies in local policy. It's also important for the public to know that while there's a lot of legislation that's out there trying to be passed, y'all have already passed 8 for last month. You're reviewing 11 for this month to be passed, and then next month you'll be looking at 12 more. And I will say, for anybody to know, y'all have been very meticulous about this whole process. Before you actually have notebooks that include all the information, both summaries of that information, and then crosswalks about that information from legal counsel. So it's been adopted, it's in review, it's in process. Y'all have done a great job of this whole process, and you should put your pat yourselves on the back for that, because not everybody gets that done. As far as this
Can
goes,
I interrupt you for one
Yeah, absolutely.
moment? I just want to thank you and the district for helping to equip us to better be able to do our jobs. This was not happening in the past. Thank you.
well, I appreciate it, and it's so much more fun because I get to talk. And then I get to talk to you guys, and I get to listen and learn. And as an educator, it's really fun. But really understanding what y'all want and how we articulate that, and then how we're going to, as you also asked me to do, articulate it to the public so they know, because that's really important. So thank you very much. And so with that process of making the nerdy notebooks that we all have for us, that I have created and decided for, is that you have the documents in front of you. Last month you saw these actual policies, and you covered them completely, and you went through them, and you actually had questions up to today with regard to those policies. And BED local, DGBA local, DFA local, EA local, EMB, FA, FFB, FL, FM, FNG, and GF. And one of the things that y'all have highlighted that we're going to do next time we have policy is within the framework of the actual board agenda itself, describe those policies so they know, the public knows what they are, so it provides a little bit more transparency. Next time, we'll actually even improve the process. But Madam President, those are the second readings that you actually reviewed. I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have about any of those particular policies.
All right, let's go ahead and, first of all, as you've already stated, the board will now discuss and possibly adopt revisions to these 11 board policies, starting with BED and GF locals. And listed on the agenda, each policy will be considered separately. I want to give the board an opportunity to discuss and possibly adopt revisions to each of the 11. Trustees have had full access to our policy services team for questions, general counsel for legal counsel, and Dr. Vinson provided small group briefings. Thank you to our staff, Dr. Vinson, everyone that's been involved in this to get us through this process, and for all the support. With that stated, a quick procedural reminder: if a trustee wishes to propose a change to any of these policies, please move to amend. We need to do a motion, we need a second, and we need the exact language to be seconded into record. The motion to amend requires that second. We will vote on the amendment first. If it passes, the motion will reflect in the amended language, and if it fails, we will proceed with the language that was presented to each of the trustees that's also in the board book, but also in our policy board book that we had. So I'll start with BED. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Vinson regarding BED or any discussion items?
Madam President, I would like to suggest that, or make a motion that we approve all of these together with the exception of EMB, because that's the only policy I've heard that may have issues.
Second.
Okay, so that's a second. All those in favor of approving?
I would like to discuss other policies as well.
Okay, so do you want to take them one by one then? So we need to take a vote.
FFB.
Can we pull only those?
Would you like to amend your motion?
I could amend my motion to approve all items under, or all policies under item 8 of our agenda, with the exception of any trustees' request to pull.
And yours was E specifically, and which would be for EMB and trustee?
And FFB.
And I'm sorry, FFB,
Correct.
which is G on our agenda. Are there any other requests at this time? All right, do I have a second to go ahead and take the motion to pass and adopt all of the policies for BED, DF, EA, FA, please tell me if I need to slow down, I don't want to rush anyone, FL, FM, FNG, and GF. We would be removing from passing and adopting in this one fell swoop of motions, EMB and FFB.
You missed DGBA as well.
Thank you. DGBA would be in the approval of all of the lists that I just gave in addition to that list. So I have a motion for that and a second. All those in
Second.
favor, please show by, so that was Trustee Dungan and Trustee Dawson for the second. All those in favor of adopting these policies as presented this evening, please show by the uplift of hands. That motion carries 7-0. And we will move on to the next, that was pretty fast for you, Dr. Vincent.
Man, that is great.
We will move on to policy EMB. Letter E on our agenda. Are there any questions for Dr. Vincent or any discussion point? Well, first let's start with questions for Dr. Vincent. Are there any questions?
Yes, I was wondering, with the part that talks about, except as required by state or federal law, no private funding shall be accepted by the district for purposes of curriculum development, purchase, or choice of curricular materials, that part of the policy.
Could you refer to where that is? Sorry.
I think it's the second page.
Second page.
Thank you.
Like, it's a red line part. It starts at, except as required by state or federal law, no private funding shall be accepted by the district for purposes. That part.
What number? Where are you at?
It's after number 3.
After 3?
Thank you.
Oh, got it.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am. Sorry.
Okay. So I was wondering, should we say that private funding requires a board vote instead? Just in case, I wasn't sure exactly what curriculum that applied to, like would it apply to things like the posters or donated library books or anything like that? Or would it just apply to curriculum, and perhaps we should vote on whether we accept the funding?
Actually, it was a great question. We've been researching that today. Kara, do you want to I'm going to prefer to legal counsel to help us with that through that process.
Sure. What this is referring to, and it just says really, it says pertaining to the above topics, so that would just be the topics that are above or included in that policy, or board policy CH, which is your purchasing, EFA or EFB, and those involve instructional materials and library materials. And so basically what this is saying is that you cannot take private donations to purchase these materials. So your policies and state law say you can't purchase those materials as a district, and this is just saying you also cannot purchase them through a donation, or you can't accept them through a donation. So you can't use, in other words, a donation as a workaround to the fact that you as a district cannot legally purchase them. And this language almost exactly mirrors what is in state law. It goes a little bit further because you guys reference, for example, your purchasing policy, but certainly there are prohibitions in state law against purchasing the things that are in your policy. So this is just saying you also can't take donations, and you would not as a board be able to vote to countervene state law and accept donations for those materials. So
Actually, and the thing is, we were trying to get to the bottom of that, and she said it so elegantly and eloquently. And it really is, because one of the things I'm going to do better when we provide you all the summary is there was a little pretext I needed to provide in there, because it sounded like when you and I were reviewing this morning, is that it was kind of a catch-all for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a catch-all for everything. It's about specific things that are already prohibited as far as that process goes.
Yeah, that really helps. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I had a question with you along that same sentence. Earlier, it says by the district, and I'm assuming, did you find out if that or if we should change the wording to also say individual schools.
The thing is, by function of that, from my understanding, that we're the ones who actually are going to approve any purchase as far as that goes.
Well, the donation part of it.
Well,
Like, I guess if it's donated directly to an independent school or an individual
I understand
school
what you're
within the
saying.
district.
Very good.
Yeah, and also, and it says this in your other policies, specifically EFA and EFB. For example, nobody can donate library books. They have to go through the approval process. Nobody can donate instructional materials. So generally in the law, when it says the district, that would also prohibit any campus.
That was my question.
But just in general, if you read the prohibitions in those policies, it's very clear that, for example, used to be maybe that a well-meaning citizen would come and donate a lot of books to a particular campus. I've in fact dropped off books at a campus, right? But the concern there is there might be materials in those books that is not appropriate. And so there just are restrictions on, at any level, accepting donations that are not allowed by your policies. And so when you do receive books as a campus, if somebody were to come and donate them, they would have to look at those books and make sure every single one of those books complied with your policies before students had access to them. Sound good?
And we actually are doing that at this time. So even with.
Oh, you guys are already doing that?
Yes. So
I think a great example would be the donations that were mentioned tonight in public comment. Those are
Absolutely.
great examples of those items are going to come through the district in order to be distributed.
they already are.
Absolutely. And the
Yeah.
thing is that through this whole process now, there's specific ISBN numbers have to be approved. And we're going to communicate, one of the things you asked us to do as far as our vetting process, to communicate that to the public about what the vetting process is, where they can find it on the website, ad nauseum, so that you have all that information there. So really, those are really great questions. And I think it's really important for the public to know that we're following the law, and the law's a little bit meticulous.
Thank you.
I want to clarify, because I don't want there to be, of course you guys love and accept donations, that's wonderful. It's just that any donated items have to be consistent with your policies before they're shown to students. So
Yes.
there's going to be a process to make sure any of those materials are carefully reviewed before we actually provide students access.
Trustee Nelson, you had a
Yes,
question?
just a quick clarifying question as well. What if we have some wonderful nonprofit organizations that want to send a teacher to professional development or training? Is this saying that we're not allowing that?
The policies, when read all together, but particularly your policy CH, which is your purchasing policy, would say that no, you cannot send teachers to professional development activities that violate your EMB. So they're always going to have to be looking at, you cannot use district resources to violate board policies. So if a teacher were going to be attending a conference that would be objectionable under the standards of the board, then the teacher would not.
But what if, and that aligns kind of what, I'm sorry to cut you off, with the question that I had. What if, you have like a PTO or, PTA that fundraises and is able to send that teacher? That's where I was wondering if we draw the line at district or schools.
Go ahead.
PTOs and PTAs are not part of the district. They're their own separate entities.
So the teacher could attend.
I'll look into it, but I mean, just as a legal matter, PTOs and PTAs are not a part of the district, and their resources are separate. I would still want to examine a little bit, more carefully if it would be possible for those entities to violate, essentially, could a teacher attend a conference that violates the board's policy by using an entity that is associated with the district? I think that's a great question. I don't have the answer to it.
Would they not still be considered private funding if they're not associated technically with the district or part of the district?
I think it
That
would probably
private
be a
funding?
donation, so I want to say that it couldn't happen, but I want to read it again and just see, because those are private.
Right.
They're private entities, so it's not a donation to the district. It would be presumably like a scholarship or a stipend to a teacher to
Right.
attend a conference, and you're not as a district in control of those organizations. So
Assuming the funding goes to the teacher directly.
and not through the district. Now, the PTO or PTA could not give money to the district and then the district send the teacher.
That would go
That
into
could not
the
happen.
donation, then it
Yeah,
goes through the loop.
I think the question would be, could a PTO and PTA that is associated with but is not part of the district, could they seek to circumvent the board's policy?
Or a nonprofit.
Or a nonprofit, or
like the
another
Education
nonprofit,
Foundation
yes,
or something.
yes.
Which then goes right back to the intent of the policy. I mean, and the state law. I mean, the intent is that it's not violating state law or policy.
Well, I think that one thing that's important to mention, I don't know about PTOs, but PTAs are a nationally, organized group. And I think that one of the things that they do, and I'm not sure, I need to research that, they need to follow the board's, the district's policies. They don't go against the district's policies as far as that stuff goes. So I'd have to go check that out, but that's one of those things, regulating those. Yeah, so in that process, it's a great thing. And this is a new world, and we're gonna ask for grace in a lot of situations. But all your questions so far have really helped us to craft where we have and where we are today. And it's a lot tighter policy than we would have had otherwise.
I have a question. A constituent tonight asked about it's the second page of EMB, letter I, unpatriotic and anti-American sentiments. Is there a legal definition, or how is that defined?
There's not, that's unique to your board, so it's not in statutory language. However, it's up to your superintendent in the policy to define and determine what that means. And so you guys have essentially given him the discretion to define that policy further and then implement it as appropriate. And of course, he has to come back and tell you how he's doing that. And so you'll have an opportunity to listen to how the district is implementing our policy.
If you remember, one of the things, you all adopt the policy, and then we develop procedures behind that. And so, in concert with those policies, what we're going to do is adhere to the policy that you want to be adopted. And so, as we define that and refine that, you'll be along those steps of the way. Because ultimately, if someone agrees it to you, then you would want to make sure that we're following the policy.
Any other questions?
I was just going to say, I echo that. I think you made a good point. So I'd like to hear how we interpret that.
Absolutely.
But that is the one thing that I do like about our communication, is that we've been able to work with you about how will this look for the district? How will this work in the classroom? How will this, and you're able to come back with that for, to answer that question down the road.
Well, I'll take example.
And even in advance, on others.
No, I mean, the whole point is, like, think back to when you adopted the reading, the books, library books, and with the process, and then we've articulated that process to you, and you've got to ask for a couple of revisions as far as it goes, so it's clear, people can find it, all those information and processes, because again, it's your policy, you just want to enforce it.
Thank you. Anything else? Do I have a motion to accept EMB as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Sorry. Okay. With no further discussion, I'll call the vote. All those in favor show by the uplifted hands. And there's no opposed, so the motion carries to accept EMB as presented this evening, 7-0. All right, moving on to FFB, item G on our agenda. Are there any questions for Dr. Vinson or Ms. Ballou, our general counsel? Any discussion?
I noticed out of the 11 policies that we're adopting tonight, almost all of them are from Senate Bill 12, with the exception of FFB. So I just wanted to get a broader understanding as to why this policy is necessary, why now, what are we trying to achieve with this?
Okay, there was actually a question that was asked to our policy council that was getting everything organized about what was supposed to happen, and he realized that we hadn't updated that policy as it relates to what needs to happen. And so through that process, we went and looked at the law from, I think, the 89th legislature that took us and said that here's the standards as far as what we have to do as it relates to, your processes and procedures behind what we're trying to do. So the threat assessment is one thing that we've been incredibly familiar with over the last couple of years. And the threat assessment team is a campus official process that goes through and does what they're supposed to do to make sure that if a student does something, that they determine the level of the threat, and they have people that are on that committee that are consistent, that are the same, that come from different points of view on the schools, that from ranging from the principal to law enforcement to counseling services to special education, so that we make good decisions. It was broadly defined, then the law came back and more specifically defined what that committee is supposed to have.
Yeah.
And so through that process, you have the full complement of folks, because that's one of the things I think that one of you asked about is it, man, that's a lot of people, and it is. In fact, during this last legislative session, I had a lot of discussion with Senator Creighton's office about that he wants to have one person at every campus to be the lead person to make that work. So I was using that before I was here, sorry. I was talking about Allen High School, had 6,500 kids at high school, and one person that was going to be the single person to take care of that. And so through that process, they still didn't bend on that, and we still have one person that's going to be at each campus taking care of that. The processes are very specific. They try to take care of all the different things and pieces and parts around it. And then the process for communication also is how you inform the parent with processes of how it's supposed to go. And if there's any other things that I'm missing here as far as the law goes, it's one of the things that with our law, our board policy, that we're going to have to start really go back in and look at things. And I know that John has brought those things up proactively to say, we need to take care of this and take care of this. And so, part of these processes and with regard to policy, will we bring things from time to time that needs to be updated.
And you said that was part of some recent legislation, correct?
Yes.
Which one, which bill
I
was
think
that?
it's Senate Bill 11. Yes.
Okay. Great.
Any other discussion or questions?
FFB was from this session?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure which session it was from, but I did talk to John about it, and it is directly out of, and I compared it, it's directly out of the law. So it's basically catching you guys up to a law that went into place.
If I'm not mistaken, Trustee Horton had mentioned it back, and it may have been the 88th legislature.
87th?
87th or 88th.
I mean, if memory serves, it's 87th, but.
Yeah.
Yes, and she brought it to our attention that we were not compliant from that far back. So
Yeah.
Conroe really needed to get up to date on
Yeah.
that.
And I just, so that first red edit that lists out the multidisciplinary team, I guess the wiggle room for campuses is to the greatest extent practical, right? And so in case they can't put all of those disciplines together, because a threat assessment in my head needs to happen quick, because it's a threat, right?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what that language is getting at, is that, you've got to act quickly. So to the greatest extent practicable, you're going to follow this particular procedure. But
It looks like that was in the 88th legislative session, SB
Okay.
11.
Thank you. I know
And
that
you
we-
said SB 11
Yeah.
in the 88th.
And that first paragraph is from because I didn't see that. When
I don't know,
looked it
I
up.
don't have the crosswalk in front of me, I apologize.
I think our teams currently have this many employees on them. I remember just from attending a PTO meeting that I think we're already doing this, but we didn't have it in policy.
Well, and the thing that, to Trustee May's point, that if you're a teeny tiny school district, you don't have all those people. So you might or might not have those people. So to the greatest extent possible, there's a little bit of wiggle room.
So just so I understand, each campus has a threat assessment team already put into place at the beginning of the year, and those people know they're on the threat assessment team,
As far as compliance goes, that's correct.
correct? And the multidisciplinary team that is put together already has all of these people?
Yes.
Okay. This just further defines it.
Mm-hmm.
Puts it in policy. If I'm understanding correctly, we're just now putting it into our policy.
It's been in
what's been in
practice.
place.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, as she was saying, to clarify.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further discussion, do I have a motion to accept FFB as presented this evening in our board book?
So moved. Second.
All right, all those in favor, show by the uplift of hands. 7-0, the motion carries. FFB is adopted. All right. We are moving on to the non-action items for discussion in, getting to the right place. Okay, we have BBE. Again, the trustees have had the opportunity to evaluate, discuss, and work with the district and council and Dr. Vincent, and the board will now discuss revisions to BBE through GKB local as listed. No action will be taken on these policies tonight. We will take each item in order and have discussion for these. We will begin with the discussion item BBE. Is there any discussion or questions for Dr. Vincent or Ms. Ballou?
Can you just state for the record what the title for each?
Yes, sorry. BBE is that it has to do with the board members' authority in board policy and board members' authority.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's also important to mention, if I might, in your policy packet, that one of the things that Kara and I tried to do for you is highlight policies that are basically policies that our board policy folks are saying, these are these compliance things. You know, there's not any new information. It's just standard boilerplate practices that we're trying to adopt here. And if you look at through the first reading, all of them, you know, are basically green because they highlight that it's just policies that need to be updated to be compliant with the law. Karen, if there's anything that you might want to add to that, but I think that's basically it. So I'm sorry, Madam President, I just want to make sure you knew that.
No, that's great. That gives great understanding to all involved. So are there any questions or amendments or requests for this?
I just wanted to clarify, so they're all just compliance issues, like there's nothing else added that's not already required by the law?
Exactly, I said that poorly. That's it. There's no add-ons as far as that stuff goes. It's basically the idea is what you did.
On these policies, this whole set right here, all that you're doing is updating your policy to match the law. So to some degree, there's not a lot of discretion. Yeah.
Right. And just to put this into perspective, sort of like when TASB gives a policy update and they send out several policies all at once, that's essentially what we're doing, but we're not using TASB.
Yeah. And also, sometimes you guys are extremely thoughtful, so you like to go exercise your judgment to add additional things to the law. So that's also why we want to be careful in giving you all the policies so that you can look and make sure it aligns not only with the law, but with what you desire as a board.
Or if we wanted to make any amendments in addition.
Yeah, if you wanted to make an amendment, add something in addition, clarify something, yes.
Yeah, we can't take away, but we can amend and add.
Very good. You guys, policy experts. And it really is, you know, it's really funny too and interesting for me because take BBE, for example. I think it was Trustee Dawson asked, what was the origin of this policy? We were trying to, and then I asked a couple of people, sometimes it's because someone made a poor choice and some law happened, and so then you're left with, they start stating in board policy what you can and can't do. And I wish it was more, thoughtful as far as that goes, but I mean, what the courts and what legal counsel is trying to do is just keep people out of trouble and stay compliant with the law.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I was just wondering, is there a legal that goes along with this, or how are we doing that?
Actually, the thing is that legal is adopted by law that, that just added.
So it'll be included in?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just had a question on BBE. I think the only edit in there says that an individual board member has authority only when acting as a member of the board in a duly called meeting. I don't know what we mean by authority, what that looks like in practicality, because it says after that, board action shall be taken only in meetings that comply with the Open Meetings Act. So to me, it's just a little redundant, but I don't know. I
Welcome
don't know
to
what
the-
else we're trying to get at with this.
I've tried to sleuth this myself, ma'am, and I have had a hard time in that process, and so me and you both, as far as that goes.
You know, the clarification is, every once in a while, a board member will, for example, call the superintendent and make a, major decision or attempt to make a major decision. And that had happened some in the state. And so what the legislature was really trying to clarify is that you are a body, and it says it in the law, you are a body corporate. And so all actions that you're taking are only supposed to be taken after the vote of a board in an open board meeting that complies with the Texas Open Meetings Act. So really what the legislature was trying to do here is prevent, individuals from making or taking action without going in front of the board, having a discussion, making sure the public can understand what the board's doing, and then voting on it.
An individual.
And yeah, no individual.
Shouldn't that be put on the superintendent, though?
It can't just, it could be anywhere you go. You could, a board member could go and speak to the press and say, I'm representing the entire board, when they're not really representing the board, or they might not even have authorization by the board to make that statement. So it's really just to prevent any action of any board member as an individual without the authority of the board.
I'm just saying, like, if a board member goes to the superintendent and says, here's what I want, it would be up to the superintendent to say, well, we're going to need to put that.
Yeah, and hopefully that would happen, but it can happen in other contexts where you're not just dealing with school personnel. It can be talking to the media, you could go to a city council meeting and make a statement and present it as if it were an action of the board when maybe you don't have board approval to do that.
Great, thank you.
So talking to the press, we need to vote collectively before we talk to the press?
If you're speaking on behalf of the board.
No, usually what the board will do is delegate what the board will do is delegate that the president is the only person that can speak to the press on behalf of the board. So you're going to come up with a system that says, how are we going to delegate our authority? If you delegate your authority to the board by adopting a policy that says the president can do it, then you've delegated that authority to that person. So you can do that, but you just have to do it through an appropriate delegation. It can't just be rogue, people making actions on behalf of the entire board.
That's what we're working on with our board
But we don't currently
operating.
have a delegation, is what you're saying.
Yes, she's saying the president.
I think in your board policy, it may say that the president is delegated with the authority to talk to the media on behalf of the board.
On behalf of the board.
Yeah. And if not, you guys are also contemplating, working on some of those issues.
I just thought, it's obvious when we're voting, right, on policy or whatnot, but on some of the other things, it's a little murky what that looks like, so that's what I was asking.
Any other questions or discussion?
Just having not experienced this a lot, is this one of those things where it kind of would have auto updated with CASB, but at this point we're just kind of going the extra mile and looking at everything individually?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Correct.
So probably because you all are in that process of you haven't had that, or we got it kind of right at the beginning of the spring, some of it, and then there was even more that was clarified in July, or what hasn't even come. But some of it is that they give you a whole slew of updates of like changing the it or whatever, just all these different things or other legal things that have been updated, and they give them to you all at once. And then you get those as a board, but if you're not taking each one and looking at them, you don't know if you want to make any changes, like in addition to what they're presenting as the new legal update, so as a board local policy. So that's why.
Makes sense.
Are we good? All right, moving on to see, sorry.
No, I just need a little clarification. What other policy did you say that the speaking on behalf of, or speaking as a member of the board is delegated to the board president? Where did you say that is? Or we don't have that?
I think you guys have a couple policies where you're delegating authority to the president, and that's very typical. One of the most important things that is usually delegated to the president that you guys have in your policy, for example, is the president of the board gets to set the agenda. So you have a preliminary agenda, and then the board president ultimately gets to look at and set that agenda for that meeting. But on the flip side, any board member can request that a item be put on the agenda, and it usually has to be put on the agenda. Your policy says at that next meeting or in the near future. So you just sort out how, but that would probably be the biggest single, I would say, delegation of authority to the president that most boards make and that you guys have made.
I think we need a little clarity on that, because I think the way this is reading it, until I can see exactly what policy is in place where it says that everything needs to go through the board president, I don't know where that is. So if that's somewhere else, but I would like a little more clarity.
You guys don't have a policy that says everything goes through the board president at all.
Okay.
It's just a few specific things you guys have delegated to your board, to your board president to do.
And is that in BE local then, or legal? Or is that somewhere else? Okay.
It's in your local government
The setting of the agenda, is that in BBE?
I think it's BBE. That it's the board policy that allows the president to set the agenda. It's your board policy that governs agenda setting.
So that's another policy then.
Yes.
We can look at that one.
Yes.
Thank you.
Or this policy, BBE?
It's not, I don't think
It's not in that?
BBE. I think it's in BE.
Oh, BE.
I'd have to,
I'm
I
sorry.
don't know.
I was
Just double
not
check
hearing
because I'm
correctly.
just going off the top of my head.
We can follow up. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll follow up. Thank you very much.
Anything else? Okay, then we'll move on to CAA. Let me get to that description, which has to do with fiscal management goals and objectives and financial ethics.
Well,
And the administration is making a recommendation.
In this particular situation, somewhere, some way along the way, somebody got a federal grant, did something nefarious with it, and now there's a policy to say that you have to report it. And so in that process, they want to make sure that there's a reporting of the features and functions of how it works. And so the disclosure, which pertains to the requirement of evidence that certain violations of federal criminal law and in connection with that federal award, is basically what it's providing in terms of that policy.
Any questions or discussion?
Just one question, just looking on our website, it doesn't look like we have a legal reference for this one.
So typically, the way that you put together your policies is you have your legal page, and that's on you have two tabs on your, so you'll have your legal page, and that should have the full law that you're citing back to, and then your policy is just referencing back to that law. So typically in here, we're not going to have a lot of references back to the law, because you just flip and go to that tab, and that has the law
No,
on
the
it.
tab does not have anything on it. The legal reference tab online does not have anything on it.
Oh, then there might not be any, I'm not sure about that.
I'll check on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a good question, given that this is in the first reading, that we would be wanting to refer back to it.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
I'll just say, I know that T is in the process of updating all those legal tabs for everything that just happened during the regular session and then the 2 special sessions. So they're in the process of updating those legal tabs.
All right, moving on to CDA. Dr. Vincent?
This is a cleanup language with regard to
I forgot. I am so sorry. I forgot to mention what it was. CDA is other revenues and investments. There you go. Sorry.
You know, I've always wondered what the people have done to get in trouble, and again, with CDA local. But once again, there's funds of the district shall be invested in accordance with Public Funds and Investment Act. The good news about Conroe Independent School District is we're incredibly conservative. We go with tax pool, all those different very conservative folks as far as how we invest our money and our revenues. And so you don't have to worry about this, but at the end of the day, full disclosure is those processes. I think that there's even municipalities and stuff like that to get a little bit aggressive, try to invest money in some different things. We shall not. But if this actually puts it in law, and so that we'll have the process to follow it.
Any questions or discussion? All right, moving on to CQB, which has to do with technology, resources, cybersecurity.
You know, over the last, 6-7 years, there has been a rash of cyber folks asking for cash, and then municipalities funding those requests, taking millions of dollars as it relates to that. Unfortunately, it usually falls not on the superintendent, but other people who are sending funds out and all those kind of things. We have a lot of policies and processes in place now to stopgap that. In fact, when there's ever a big revenue request for me and I get an email, I actually call people on the phone and then we ask people to call, and this would be Karen, and talk to people. Because, there needs to be those standards and processes. This provides training and that to make standard that you're through cybersecurity training about making people aware of those threats wherever they are. So it's unfortunate because it's the worst training in America because it's really super boring, but it's necessary and important.
Yes.
So it's very important. I think it's good. I'm just saying it could use some pizzazz. So that's what we have.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Who is our cybersecurity coordinator currently?
It's going to be actually Jared, I believe.
Oh,
Is that
okay.
correct? Yeah.
Dr. Lambert? Okay.
He
Thank you.
says yes. That's a confirmation.
Thank
yes.
you.
All right, moving on to DH, which has to do with employee standards of conduct.
Well, as we relate to this, a lot of different things that have to do with vaping and e-cigarettes. And, it's a language cleanup, as we just mentioned before. It used to be educator, but there's more than educators vaping. And so now it's employees acting in person for the service provider of the district. And then they went just from e-cigarettes to expand that to or nicotine products, as an employee may be requested exception from this provision for smoking a cessation product. Y'all have had really good questions because sometimes it's like, what is even nicotine and how does that produce? Because there's different delivery systems about it. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I don't have a better answer for you. But at the end of the day, it's relegated these specific things. And again, Senator Creighton was really adamant about this in the process of when he was making legislation with regard to vaping and making that a 10-a-day mandatory DAP placement. But it's also standards and processes as it relates to our employees as well.
I have a question.
Sure.
And maybe this is a Kara question. Are Zyn pouches considered a nicotine product?
Well, I don't know what a Zen pouch is.
Well, no, here's the thing about it. If I might take this one, because I even sent it through AI, it's this little pouch thing.
But what I will tell
Go
you,
ahead.
as with any of these
Okay, I'll look it up.
policies, if you're concerned about it, you can ask your superintendent to carefully define what is a nicotine
process.
product and a process and then tell you what that is.
I do
It
think it is a
contains
nicotine.
nicotine, but no tobacco.
There you go.
There we go.
It's
Okay.
a nicotine product.
Okay.
It's you can't smell it. It's actually minty fresh. Yeah. But the thing is that it does.
Minty fresh.
I'm not saying I'm promoting it, ma'am, but I'm just saying that in that process, that's where it is. We're making board policy fun again. Okay. So that's the process about what we're doing here.
Great.
So I don't, because I have looked at, I even sent AI. AI didn't know. So as far as that goes.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, moving on to
President Odenweiler,
yes.
I have just a quick
Yes.
question. We have CY in our packet, but it's not listed up here. Are we covering CY or not?
No, we are not. Actually,
Go ahead.
ma'am, what we're doing is we're going back, and that's going to be in your next month
Thank
reading,
you.
and so we're not doing that with
Thank
this
you.
one.
Okay, moving on to policy EHB, curriculum design, special programs.
This is cleanup language as far as when the legislature goes, and I forget which it is, but district complies with the state, and then they take out rules as standards adopted by the State Board of Education and programs to, and then they put dyslexia and related disorders, and basically it was just updating that language to be more inclusive. Kara, do you want to expand on when they moved dyslexia from a 504 condition to special education that had certain provisions in the law that gave it certain rights as far as special education, and we've been doing cleanup language on that for a couple of sessions. Fair?
This does not make sense to me, though. It says the district shall comply with all state students. Am I missing a word?
State dyslexia and related disorders. The state was to go.
Oh, students is still in, it didn't get crossed out. Is that
Yes.
what you're saying? Right.
Yes.
It just doesn't
The district
read-
shall
it doesn't
comply
make
with
sense.
all state.
Dyslexia and related orders.
It doesn't.
I will
it doesn't
review
read
that
that.
with John,
Very
and we'll get back to
confused
you.
about this one.
Check, we'll get that done.
Thank you.
I've only looked at this 17, 18 times.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or concerns? Moving on to EHBB, which is Special Programs, Gifted and Talented Students.
It is completely a language consideration with the first part. It went from identification, and it's no longer assessment, because the process, you're not assessing, you're identifying folks. And then, as a former GT coordinator, I remember this. And then as then placement instead of selection, because you're placing them into the actual program itself. And with that, there is exit provisions as well that talk about placement in terms of selection. And then the process for for not meeting students' educational needs, and is added as language. And then appeals, again, the very same process as it relates to what is included in the provision of that law.
And then the funding.
And the funding. Here's the funny part about it is, state gives you 5% and you can use it where you want to. We got like 10% of our kids, usually they're identified special, gifted. And so you spend that getting out of the gate, and they say you can spend it wherever you want to. Well, we spent it yesterday, so I don't know anybody who's not using it because there's so very little of it.
It's just defining that we must
It is,
spend
and
100%.
the fact of it is, it gives you the provision to be able to spend all of it. Sometimes there is provisions in the law that would limit and designate where you could spend those dollars. Now it's more open, which is an important thing. Because sometimes if they spend that money on identification, on assessment, all those kind of things.
Any other questions on that, or concerns, or requested? Okay. Moving on to GKA, which is Community Relations Conduct on School Premises.
This is a provision that talks about the notion that including requirement of advertising must be consistent with the district values and compliance with EMB local, EFA local, EFB local, and it's cleanup language from the perspective of what the news laws have been as it relates to all of those standards of, conduct and the like. And then more specifically with regard to it, is talking about, again, vapes, electronic vaporized devices, insofar as making sure that's included in the provisions of those laws. And as it relates to it, there's not a whole lot of massive changes.
No.
So that's basically it.
I have a
ma'am.
question.
Sure.
So the previous policy mentioned nicotine, and this one mentions tobacco.
Yes.
So
I would like nicotine, unless that's,
I
um,
can definitely research that and see if we can add that back through.
since now we understand the difference between.
So
Yeah.
then we will, if we're needing to make that change, if that is a change that needs to be made, and we can legally make that change, then Dr. Vinson, would you please update the board following this for the next reading so that it's, that we know that is the exact wording that we have to
Absolutely.
use or not use, if we can make the change to nicotine so that
I
the
will have
board
it
is
in
well
next week's
aware
brief.
going into the second reading. Okay?
Well, just so it's
Anything else?
consistent with the other policy.
Oh, absolutely.
I
And the thing is
100%
that-
agree, I just was wanting to make sure we didn't have another
Yeah,
delay on
absolutely.
it. Any other? All right, moving on to GKB.
Again, one of those fun things where somebody did something
Hold on,
wrong.
sorry, it's community relations, advertising, and fundraising, there you go. Sorry to cut you
No,
off.
actually, you're doing great, and there's a lot to it. Commercial advertising in district facilities permitted and approved, but consistent with the district values. It makes you wonder who was advertising at a school they shouldn't be. So this is going to be consistent with the values of the great state of Texas, and we're going to make sure that we're compliant with those processes. And we will be happy to comply.
Any questions or concerns? All right, then, Dr. Vinson, I think that you have successfully navigated through those for the first time with us.
I'm going to say this, though, guys. I mean, when you think about this, what we've been able to accomplish and talk about, what's not reflected in here is how many questions and things that we tackled before this time. And so really, it's a good thing. And even during this whole process of clarification, again, we go back to this same notion that if we think about this as like is that everything is clear and it's practicable and enforceable. And a word means everything in this language. So let's get it right. And so we welcome the language, we welcome the questions, and keep them coming because it makes better policy and it makes better procedure and it makes people feel better about knowing what the laws and the rules are. And thanks for Kara and for helping us get through this. Thank you, man.
All right, well, it is now 8:46. The board will move into closed session as authorized by Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Sections 551.071 and 551.072 and 551.074 to discuss the items listed in Section 10 on the agenda. All final votes and actions will be taken in open session. The time is 9:57 and we are now back in open session. No final action was taken in closed session. We're moving on to action items from closed session number 11A. The next item on the up for discussion is regarding the representation of Conroe ISD by the Office of Attorney General of Texas in the matter of Roxanne Cribbs-Ringer et al. Versus Conroe ISD et al. Do I have a motion?
Yes, a motion to approve representation by the Office of the Attorney General of Texas in the matter of Ringer et al. Versus Conroe ISD et al.
All right, thank you, Trustee Duncan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Nelson. Any discussion? All those in favor show by the uplift of hands. All right, the motion carries for the Attorney General's office to represent us. 7-0. Moving on to item B. Next up for discussion is to take action on superintendent's recommendation to propose termination for good cause and authorize notice of proposing mid-contract termination of employment contract of Darby Brady. Do I have a motion?
I move to propose termination for good cause and authorize notice proposing mid-contract termination of employment contract of Darby Brady.
Thank you, Trustee Nelson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Dawson. Any discussion? All those in favor show by the uplift of hands. Okay, the motion carries 7-0. Moving on to item C. Next is the discussion and possible action on the superintendent's recommendation to propose termination for good cause and authorize notice proposing mid-contract termination of employment contract of Angela Gollard. Do I have a motion?
I motion. Can I just say what you just said?
Do I have a motion to accept? All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Second. I don't know if it counts.
No, it counts.
Okay.
It does count. All right, so all those in favor show by the uplift of hands. 4, 5, 6, 7. The motion carries 7-0 for termination. Okay, are there any other requests from trustees for future agenda items?
I have one. I would like a construction update next meeting, please. Specifically Conroe High School. Love to know when that's going to be done, and a little discussion on Washington. Thank you.
Those specifically?
But a total construction
total
update
construction
as well.
update. Yes, there are, but she's asking for an agenda item. Hearing no, are any other items?
I have one.
Yes.
I'd like to add the facilities policy that I've already emailed you about.
Yes, I have that one on the agenda
GKD.
already. Thank you. And I have the ones from Trustee Nelson as well. Hearing no further business, this meeting is adjourned and the time is 10 p.m.